Roll call.
Mayor Laura,
Present.
Vice Mayor Landry,
Present.
Commissioner Parsons,
Here.
Commissioner Vasquez,
Here.
Commissioner Warren.
Here.
We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. Invocation.
Jason Toombs. Reverend Jason Toombs, representing the Liberal Ministerial Alliance. Let us pray. Almighty God, you have given us this good land as our heritage. Grant that we remember your generosity and constantly do your will. Bless our land with honest industry, truthful education, and an honorable way of life. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil course of action. Grant that we who came from many nations with many different languages may become a united people. Support us in defending our liberties, and give those to whom we have entrusted the authority of governing the spirit of wisdom, that there may be justice and peace in our land. When times are prosperous, may our hearts be thankful, and in troubled times, do not let our trust in you fail. Almighty God, be the source and strength and hope for the children in our families and our community. When they stray, protect them from all danger, and grant your abiding presence. Guide them by your word into paths of wisdom and righteousness, and send forth your holy angels to watch over them, that the evil one may have no power over them. Lord God, our Father, you kept Abraham and Sarah in safety throughout their days of their pilgrimage. You led the children of Israel throughout the midst of the sea, and by your star you led the wise men to the infant Jesus. Protect and guide us as many set out to travel in this summer season. Make their ways safe and all homecomings joyful, and bring us at last to our heavenly home, where you dwell in glory with your Son and the Holy Spirit, one God now and forever. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 1, awards, proclamations, and presentations. Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 2, approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as printed.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Vasquez and a second by Commissioner Warren. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? 5-0. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 3, the minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the June 24th, 2025 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Vasquez and a second by Commissioner Parsons. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? 5-0. Motion passes. Item number 4, items from citizens. Do we have any items from citizens tonight? Please step forward while I read the rules of the commission. Any citizen desiring to address the commission shall be recognized by the chair, advance to the podium, state his or her name and address in an audible tone for the record. Presentation shall be limited to 5 minutes unless extended by a vote of the majority of the commission. The commission does not hear matters involving litigation or city personnel. The commission does not take action on subjects not on the agenda unless unusual or hardship conditions exist. Citizens may address the commission on agenda items as they are brought to the floor. Thank you.
My name's Hayden Olive, and y'all knew this was coming, so I guess I'm the one that didn't want to disappoint you, and I'm here to show a little problem that we have. I take care of my yard. Most of the people in my neighborhood do. Thursday, everybody was out mowing their yards, getting everything ready for the 4th of July weekend. Saturday morning, this is what I woke up to. I think that's rather ridiculous. That came out of my yard, just my yard, and then partway out in the street. So I took my bag, I went out there, I spent almost 2 hours picking up the stuff out of my yard, cleaning up my place. That came out of my yard about halfway out in the middle of the street. The people across the street have been shooting the fireworks since the day they started selling them. That weekend when we had 40 and 50 mile an hour winds, they're out there shooting fireworks. So I called the police. So the police came by, and when I called, I told them, I said, if you're just gonna drive on by, don't even bother to come up, because that's what usually happens. So when I saw the police coming up the street, I stood out in the middle of the road and stopped them. I said, it's that house right there. They said, well, we need to make sure, we have to know for sure that that's the house that's doing it. And I said, they were shooting them when you were driving up and down the street. You couldn't see that? And they said, yeah, we saw it. We verified it. So I said, so are you going to do anything about it? So they did go up and talk. They went up and got ready to knock on the door. I said, they're not going to answer the door. I said, I've called on them before. I said, they see you coming up and down the streets. They run like cockroaches when you turn the lights on as soon as they see you coming. I said, they're all hiding out in the backyard. If you want to talk to them, you got to go to the backyard and talk to them back there. Which they went up and they knocked on the door. Naturally, nobody answered. So they knocked several more times. Finally, a little kid, probably 6, 8, 9 years old, came and answered the door. Well, then it was too late for the parents. They had to go ahead and open the door and let the cops in. They got a warning. The cop said, if it happens again, let us know. 3 times between then and the 4th of July, I called on them for shooting fireworks. Not just that they were shooting them, but at the hours that they were shooting. So I was already upset. Well, then when I got up Saturday morning and saw this mess in my yard, I was worse than upset. You can imagine the words I'm thinking about, that how I really felt. So lo and behold, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, all the people that were there the night before started showing up again. So I called one of the people that lived there as they were going up. I said, are you guys going to shoot fireworks again tonight? Well, we haven't decided yet. We're going to drink beer and eat food, but I don't know if we're going to shoot fireworks or not. And I said, I got something I want to show you. So I went and I got my bag of trash and showed it to him. He just kind of looked at it like, what do you want me to do about it? And I said, I don't care if you shoot your fireworks. I said, but clean up your damn mess when you're done. I said, this is ridiculous. I said, I don't care whether you guys take pride in your yard or not. I do, but I shouldn't have to pick up your mess. I said, I never spent a penny on fireworks, and here I am left on the block, to be the one to clean up the mess. I said, I'm tired of it. I said, I've called on y'all before. I said, I was the one that called on you the other night when the wind was blowing 50 miles an hour. I said, y'all ought to have sense enough not to be doing that. The comment come back and said, well, you should stop and realize this is the 4th of July. I said, really? I said, I'm probably twice your age. I said, I've spent probably twice as many 4th of Julys as you have. And I said, I've never seen a mess like this before. I said, this is ridiculous. He goes, well, when we were done shooting them, he said, I got out the broom and I swept the street. I said, and you're a liar. I said, because all the stuff was still scattered all over the street. It wasn't in a pile like it had been swept up. I said, you're nothing but a liar. And he goes, well, do what you got to do. He reached out to grab the bag of trash, and he says, here, I'll take it and get rid of it. And I said, no, you won't. I'll take it to the city commission so they can see the kind of crap we have to put up with around here. So he also said, the cops told us, they're shooting them out in the middle of the street. He said, when the cops come by, they didn't tell us we couldn't shoot them out in the middle of the street. I said, when was this? He goes, 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, what, you idiot? You're not supposed to be shooting them past midnight anyway. Don't you know the ordinances? So something needs to be done. I mean, I'm not the only person in town that has this kind of a mess. When you start selling fireworks a week and a half or 2 weeks ahead of time, that's too long a period. If people can buy them, they're going to shoot them. I mean, I don't blame them. So something needs to be done about the selling period. I don't know what other kind of enforcement can be, but they need to know what the rules are. I don't know if, like at the fireworks stands, if when they make a purchase, if they need to be given a sheet with all the rules and regulations where you can shoot, when you can shoot, something needs to be done. This is ridiculous. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. And I mean, I think people get up here and complain about the trash and stuff, but I don't know that you always get a picture of what the trash and stuff really is. It's a mess. I think it's a situation that something needs to be dealt with. It's just a matter I wanted to bring to your attention. And I'll clean up my mess.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Any comments from the commission?
I mean, we did give out flyers, didn't we?
We did.
We made it mandatory that all the fireworks stands.
In every
give out-
bag that was sold at a fireworks stand, we gave all of the rules per the fire department.
So Kelly, yes? Yes.
Well, if it was your kid doing it, you take the toy away from them. So maybe we need to go a couple of years and not let them shoot the fireworks and let them appreciate what they have.
I mean, I personally don't disagree. I think that it's a problem. I mean, it started a week before. We made it very clear in the ordinance and how we wanted it done. We adjusted the ordinance so that it was a little bit more strict this year. We put the flyers inside, and it's still a week before, you know, and it's bigger fireworks every year. I mean, I had a mess in my yard that I had to clean up, so I think that it's not gonna sit well with some people, but I think it's a problem. I don't disagree with you, sir, in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, it's not necessarily about trying to take away, you know, the rights of people to have fun or this and that. I'm not a party pooper, and I'm not saying we can't do that. But what I'm saying is there's a point when people, you know, you give them an inch and they just continuously take more and more of a mile. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed, and I think it's something that we really need to talk about before the 4th of July next year as to what we really want to do, because it gets to the point where it's out of control. Whether it be animals that have to be, I had to sedate my animal for 4 or 5 days just so that she could make it through the night and not piddle on the floor because she was so scared of what was going on. I shouldn't have to sedate my dog for 5 days. That's ridiculous. But it's just that point, you know, and it's a lack of respect for authority. It's a lack of respect for the rules that are put into place. And like the gentleman said, you know, if your child does something wrong with something, what do? You take it away. They need to understand that. And I'm not saying that we're at that level, but we made it extremely clear this year on what our expectations were and what we wanted. And consistently bending the rules, and we bow down and say, yeah, you're gonna do it. We're okay, let's keep doing it. You know, he's not the only citizen that I'm sure is upset about it. So,
Well, I went to the July 4th BJ's game, but I left before the fireworks to come home to my house and have a vehicle parked across the street sideways so I couldn't get to my driveway with 2 cars parked in front of my driveway and another car parked blocking the street at my neighbor's house. And they've been really good neighbors until this happened. And
yeah,
and I walked up there and found them and told them that, you know, it's illegal to block the street. Could you move those? And a police officer did show up while I was there, right after I got through saying, I can't believe the police haven't showed up yet. And then they showed up, and I'm sure they thought I called them, and I hadn't had a chance to call them yet, but I'm sure I was very bit as upset as he was.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't act it, but I did the same thing, had to clean up my yard. And I guess it rained that night and wore some of it back out into the street, but they cleaned up some of their mess. But it looked, I mean, there was hundreds of them out there in the street. And I told them it's illegal to pop them in the street, but to me, it's maybe safer in the street than there, but not out in the middle lane of the traffic, and you can't block traffic. I don't know what the solution is, because I think I said it before a couple meetings ago when we were talking about putting the flyers in and stuff, that there's a certain amount of people that don't want the fireworks, and we allow it to happen, so the other half that do want them can do that, but they don't respect the people that don't want them and want them to stop at the same time. So to me, they either need to go away, or we've got to figure out how to, with social media the way it is, we've got to find people enough money that it gets on social media. And I know that's hard, Chet, because like I say, you guys can write them a ticket, but it's got to get through the court too. But it's probably the only way that's going to make them know where the boundaries are, is if they lose enough money and or understand that it's just like speeding down the street, that when you get caught, you get a ticket, and that's the way it needs to be. And I know we started off with the warnings and stuff, and I appreciate that the police officer showed up, but he actually left before, and I know they were probably running crazy, so I'm not blaming on them, but they actually left before they made sure everything was kosher, that the people did move the vehicles, but I told them they were gonna move the vehicles, and then they only moved one in front of my driveway. I still had to pull in at an angle. I was upset enough, I was probably thinking about having their vehicle towed. But at the same time, I calmed down a little bit, but we do have a problem, and we can't go on to next year without making either some adjustments or banning them, is where we're at.
And I would agree with that 100%, that we're at that break point now where we're giving the public the benefit of the doubt to follow the rules and do the right thing. And I think you've gotten to that point now where nobody's wanting to follow it. And you have 50% of the people don't want them, and you have 50% of the people that do, and then you have 50% of those people that don't care what they do with it. And while it outweighs the responsible ones, unfortunately, and this is not about punishing anybody, but, I mean, citizens, whether it be fires or having to clean up yards, I had to clean up mine too. You know, and I had a mortar explode in my backyard that got shot off from somewhere, and it lit up the whole backyard like I've never seen before. So there's a point when it's just getting too much, and I think we're at that point now.
Did we have any fires due to the fireworks?
A total of 8 fires and 1 emergency medical call, person hit with the firework.
And that was all firework related? We had a few other fires that weren't related to the fireworks this last week, right, or weekend?
I would say 7 of those I would definitely, I know for a fact are firework related, the structure fires, the 2 houses on Academy, we can't rule out fireworks.
Okay,
That's what I thought.
might have been in the covered porches, okay.
Yeah, see,
Could have been, huh?
yeah. I don't want my house burning down. I'm sure Jeff doesn't want his house burning down. I don't think anybody here wants their house burning down. And I don't want to burn somebody's house down by shooting off fireworks. I don't want to be responsible for that. So I think it's at a tipping point. So I think to put a period at the end of the conversation, to think that we're very much aware of what's going on, and there will be some really serious discussion going forward before the next holiday as to what route we're gonna go.
I'm all for the idea of continuing enforcement, trying to figure out a way to move forward on that. But the entire time I'm hearing the conversation regarding banning the fireworks, or half the people wanting them, half the people not wanting them, the secondary conversation that I'm hearing that we've been dealing with for the last year as well is pets. So if you think that a few people doing the wrong thing with one situation requires banning, are you willing to go that far when you finally have a dog that mauls a child or does something out here, or kills more of the animals? Should we start banning the
That's
pets in
not
the
even-
city?
That's a completely
That's a
different.
completely
You're saying it
different
is a
thing.
completely different
completely
thing, but
opposite.
I have a
it's
question.
rights of people that you're trying to
Those aren't
reject on
rights. Those
that.
are not right. Fireworks are not a given right. to any
Exactly,
citizen
neither
in the
are
United States.
animals.
Your
Neither of the two
percentage-
are rights.
your
But you
percentage-
license
I'm
your
just
dog.
saying-
You
Your
license.
percentages are way different.
Yeah.
We're saying a few, but it's a lot.
Wow.
I hear more complaints on Facebook about animals than I hear about fireworks. Fireworks are a 1 week period, maybe 2, where animals are all year round. So when you go off one route and you go this route where you say maybe we should ban a thing people don't like, that is the direction the next people are gonna go when they want something
Well,
against that.
personally, I'm willing to have both those discussions.
That's a fair thing, sure. We should have those discussions.
I would suggest that we have
Yeah.
a session where we can just discuss this more in detail.
Maybe we should have more town halls with people about those separate issues and see what people would prefer.
I'd be completely happy with that.
Because again, we represent 20,000 people in this community, and we don't hear from more than probably 1,000 at best. So we should take everyone into consideration as much as we can. But I'm all about having more meetings and being as open as possible to the public so we can get as much information from them as possible.
I have just a couple of things to add, if you will. Thank you, Hayden, for coming in and airing your concern. I do feel like we took a very proactive approach this year. We did show up to the commission several times from the fire department's perspective and the PD to give visuals of what we were doing. They did give sheets at the fireworks stands in each bag, so we did improve there. In the ordinance this year, we narrowed the days to shoot fireworks in hopes that it would improve the situation. At leadership meeting this morning with the executive team, we did discuss narrowing the dates for sales maybe a little bit instead of giving them several days in advance, but we would bring that before the commission when we have some open sessions. And then we also discussed possible repercussions for sellers who aren't necessarily following rules, so we can discuss that in an open work session as well. And then Chet and Kelly, I've asked them to give a report during items from staff this evening as far as the number of calls, the number of responses that they made, both with PD and fire as far as enforcement is concerned. So they will present that to you at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. At this time, are there any other items from citizens? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 5, items from groups. Are there any items from groups? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 6, the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as printed.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Commissioner Vasquez. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? 5-0. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 7, Watkins Public Strategies Legislative Update.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, we're pleased to welcome up Jessica Lucas and Nathaniel Blank from Watkins Public Strategies. They'll be giving an update on this past session and some things to look forward to in the future as well.
Hi there.
Hello, hello. Good to see you all. Jessica Lucas, Vice President of Watkins Public Strategies. I have with me Nathaniel Blank from our team as well. I'm going to kick off our conversation, and he's going to get into a little bit more of the details on several bills that impacted the city this year that we were involved in. But first, I just want to introduce this session. We saw the election last fall of all 165 House and Senate members. So we had a new legislature coming in. Obviously, of course, many of them were returning, but we still saw almost a third of the body were new. And on top of the changes of elected officials, we also had a new schedule in that the legislature has decided to go to a 90 calendar day session versus a 90-day session. So in the past, we would have saw our work extend into May. I've been there before when we've extended into June. And this year, we were done and totally wrapped by April 10th or 11th, as I recall. So it was a much speedier process. And then, to add a new layer to the session, the legislature also decided that they wanted to have their own budget. And so historically, a budget would have looked like the governor creating a product, and then all of the work was built off of that. They would examine the governor's budget and say, we like this, we're going to keep it in, or we're going to sprinkle some more on it, or we're going to take some away. But everything was done from the governor's budget. This year, they basically took the governor's budget, set it aside, and started from their own work product, which looked like the 2024 budget pared down from everything that had any type of what they called one-time expense. So it was just a different year that resulted in a lot of fast-paced movement and many, many changing dynamics. For us, one of the key things, we started working on this last year. Last year, we were making a request of $250,000 for stepping stones. After some work post-session, Nathaniel and I came out, we met with your folks and team members from Stepping Stones, and really discovered that there was much more extensive need there, that had we been successful in 2024 and getting those resources, it really would not have done what was needed at the facility. So I appreciate the work that they did to get us a better sense of things. At the end of the day, the legislature did agree to $650,000 in resources. I want to say it is a testament to the work that we had been doing and continue to do this year. This is the only money that was in the budget to provide any kind of support and services to the homeless population. That has been an area that the legislature really has not been willing to go. But we stressed really hard that obviously this was incredibly important, and quite frankly was also the only allocation that I saw in the budget for Southwest Kansas. And that continues to be something that is a personal priority of mine. that we continue to see. You will see through the budget process that many people come through with requests for a variety of things and they get funded. And a lot of those are concentrated in the northeast part of the state and the south central part of the state. So it was a personal conviction and source of pride for us that we were able to ensure, even on something that is difficult to get buy-in for, that many people believe there are other roles and responsibilities for state dollars than that area. Appreciated that we were able to get policymakers to yes and receive that allocation of $650,000. Now, the new wrinkle is that in this budget, as a way to try and exercise additional cost cutting and fiscal responsibility, the legislature also included a request that agencies cut their budget by 1.5%. So we received a call that this money would also be impacted by that. So while in the budget line items it was $650,000, the amount that Stepping Stones is going to receive is just under $610,000. There was a $40,104, I think, haircut, if you will. So we're going to just get almost $610,000. The other piece that I'm working with the agency on right now, so the state's budget starts on July 1. So we're technically able to receive those dollars now. What the process will look like is that they will create a contract that Stepping Stones will ultimately have to sign off on. The piece where we are engaging and is super important is what the distribution of those dollars look like. And I have already told the state, I had a conversation with them today, in fact, about the importance and necessity of those dollars coming as much as possible on the front end. Obviously, we're not dealing with an organization that's sitting on additional resources, and we know that the importance of getting that money in and also trying to make sure that we can buy materials at the lowest cost and we're not in a situation where it's going to cost more down the road. So that's the next step of this process, where we'll be working with the state to make sure we can get that language in such a way that it will free up the dollars as quickly as possible, as much as possible. At the same time, the state has a responsibility to make sure if they're releasing funds, that they're being used correctly and all of that. So I think that's the balancing act that we're in. But again, happy to deliver those dollars, glad that they're going to come into what is a very important and necessary, though certainly, less sexy thing, if you will, but very critical function of a community is their homeless shelter. The other thing I want to mention is with the budget process, we are now seeing everything accelerated again. So the legislature is going to continue to create its own budget. This means they're going to be meeting beginning in September to talk about what that looks like. We believe, and that's been driven by conversations that I've had with staff and with some of you there at the chamber, that it is important that we're continuing to highlight ways that the legislature can support Southwest Kansas. And they're not going to do it just because, right? It does take voices that are in there telling your story in the Capitol every day, talking about the need. And I appreciate the leadership of the delegation in the southwest part of the state for this area. It is Senator Ron Rankman Sr. and Representative Shannon Francis. What we'll be having conversations with all of you now moving forward is what else is out there. I cannot always guarantee that the state will have the resources to provide additional funding, but where there are needs, we certainly should be identifying those, and part of our role is to help be a champion for that. So I want to make sure we're continuing that conversation, and we just have to speed that up, because we will start to talk about money in September this year, whereas in the past it largely has been a January conversation and sort of hinged on the governor's budget. So we're playing in a little bit of different space. With that, I will field any questions if you have any as far as the budget. All right, and I'm going to let Nathaniel talk about transportation and then some of the other just sort of local government bills that were part of this year's discussion.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, City Commission members. I am Nathaniel Blank with Watkins Public Strategies. This year we actually did see quite a number of bills that were attacking the local government authority across the state, coming from several different committees actually. One of the first ones was House Bill 2088. It would have required a 60-day turnaround for all building permits, both residential, commercial, and industrial. We were able to water that one down pretty significantly to now only apply to single-family residential property, maintaining the appropriate zoning timeline for all other industrial and commercial decisions. We also worked on House Bill 2152, which was a bill brought by the Bank Association. That really was a bill designed to fund or direct more funding towards local banks, but at the cost of the return on investment by local governments. Again, we were able to reach a compromise on that bill. And that bill, also allows the public monies pooled method to secure deposits above the FDIC limit. One we saw last year that we were able to once again actually defeat and squash was House Bill 2343, which was the creating the No Impact Home-Based Business Fairness Act, which would have essentially deregulated any in-home-based business that did not increase traffic and parking on streets. We saw that one last year. It didn't really get any traction. This year, they ran it through a different committee. It did pass the House, but the Senate sat on it and took no action, so that did not pass this year. But I can assure you that we will see it again next year, and we will keep an eye on that. Star bonds were again extended. They were also expanded this time in the budgets to allow former shopping malls to be eligible for star bond projects for remodeling and reuse. Unfortunately, a bill that did pass, but we were able to make a little bit better, was House Bill 2289. Originally, the House had sought to completely eliminate the affordable housing tax credit match from the state. They're facing basically a $250 million annual bill if the match stayed at what it currently was. We were able to maintain the 9% federal credit match at $8.8 million capped annually, but that will also sunset in 2028. And I believe my last note was going to be the $650,000 for Stepping Stone Shelter in the budget, but Jessica already covered that, so I'd be happy to.
Do you want to also talk about local consult and?
Oh, yes, going forward, we are tracking the KDOT's local consult process. Those meetings will begin in October. The October 14th meeting will be here in Liberal. We will be across District 6 and District 5, which is the Wichita area, advocating for the expansion of Highway 54. As well as in November, the mobility study for the Southwest Kansas Highway Mobility and Expansion. They will have their next public meeting in November to talk about their findings and have more public hearings. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just want to verify on the star bonds, those have been expanded to include that, but were they also extended?
Correct.
Till when are they currently going to sunset at this point, do you know? Because I know there was a deadline of 2026, but.
Yeah, I think it was 2028.
2028?
Yeah, Mayor, I think it's 2028, but we'll double check, and my dates start to be mush at this point.
I imagine you read enough that you go, which one did pass, which one didn't?
But no, they have been extended of that, I am certain. I do believe it's 2028, but we'll confirm and provide that feedback.
I want to mention that at the Southwest Kansas Coalition meeting that they had in Garden City, was it last week or the week before? 2 weeks ago. I was able to attend, and they had a lot of their freshmen and House Majority Speaker Chris Croft.
Mm-hmm.
So he was there, and about 8 of their freshmen are going to different areas on the western side of the state. And I think it was good for some of them to hear it, because some of them were representatives from Johnson County or Wichita County who, as a legislature, want to come in and do kind of government control and take away home rule. But they got to listen from Garden City and Liberal and our different areas on how a plan that might work and how to limit a larger city also hurts the cities out here. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was an eye-opener for a lot of them. Some of them were freshmen, some of them not so much, but it was good for them to see that. And I think that's a message we should continue to push is a ban in one city doesn't necessarily help all the cities. And just because one city does something like this doesn't mean that the rest of them won't be hurt because of it. So I think that was very beneficial.
Absolutely, and I think, again, the amplification of your voice is increasingly more important as we start to see population redistributed across the state, where you're going to have legislators, unless we see some growth, which I know is the goal, but the more folks that we have living in Johnson County and Wichita and just having those experiences, what used to happen in the legislature is that folks who were living in Johnson County and Wichita still had some kind of rural roots, whether that was Southwest Kansas or Southeast Kansas, but they had some tie to small communities. We've kind of moved a generation beyond that, where a lot of folks, especially these younger people that are coming into the legislature, really have only been anchored in a urban populated district. And so there is a need for greater awareness and communication about what life is like in places that are not, populated with over 250,000 people. So I appreciate that they are trying to get out and around, and that you were able to be there and continue those conversations. And I think we also need to look for ways to do that. One of the things we did this year, of course, was the annual pancake breakfast, and then we also host a dinner with some legislators. And we should, of course, continue to do that, but we may also want to invite some of the other leaders beyond just our Southwest Kansas folks, just to help them educate and hear what's happening and get a little more insight into a different part of the world than what they're regularly seeing. So we can definitely make that a priority and consideration for our continued outreach.
That'd be great.
All right.
Thank you. Any questions?
I just want to say thanks for what you do for us. We appreciate it.
I do have a quick question. So I know this is more federal grants, but do you guys help with cybersecurity grants or any assistance? I'm just asking because I'm seeing more small rural areas being attacked, and would just be interested if that's something you guys could help with. I don't know if that's more federal money, but I don't know if there's.
So yes, we're always happy to help. If we know that there's something that you're applying for, happy to help connect. I know Keely does a great job working with the federal delegation as well. But at the state level, cybersecurity has also been a major part of the conversation. So again, when we talk about those resources, cyber has been an area where the state has made some additional investments. Seward County Community College has been the recipient of some cyber dollars that they've been able to use. This year, those dollars were not awarded, but in the past they have been. So absolutely, if you feel like there is a situation where, whether it's a grant is one thing, and we're happy to help with that, but if it also looks more like a direct appropriation or there's something specific that's needed, we're happy to talk through that. It is part of the conversation. And I think we're all aware that in many ways we're woefully unprepared for what can happen, and everyone's trying to get a handle on that. The state has been its own victim of cybersecurity crime in the judicial system, which probably impacted you too.
Okay. I think that's all we have for now then.
Okay, well, again, thanks everyone, and it truly is our passion to help try and make sure that the state recognizes the value of this part of the state, and that we're not just putting our resources into a couple of pockets. So thank you for the opportunity to represent all of you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we'll move on to item number 8, the Watkins Public Strategies Lobbying Services Agreement.
So at this time, we've been working with Jessica Nathaniel since August of 2023. I feel like we've made continuous strides in connecting with state resources, legislators across the state, as well as those in our federal delegation. So at this time, we want to continue on an annual basis to bring this contract back. So we do have a renewal contract presented for Watkins Public Strategies to continue working to advocate for our interests. Some of the critical services they provide for us, of course, is direct lobbying. They're very familiar with our policy goals and some of the initiatives that we have in connecting us with those resources. They help us with preparing a ton of written testimony for different committees moving forward as they're considering and hearing different bills. They've provided some actual oral testimony on site, and they help with anyone who's going forward to testify in front of committees. That's a critical piece because for a long time we have not had that type of presence, and so we do really feel that makes a huge difference for us. They know exactly the key talking points to present that are going to hit that target and make sure our message is delivered. They also help us, again, with connecting us with legislators, having some of those more formal and informal meetings with them, getting us connected with state and federal opportunities and some of those key people involved. We have gotten several meetings with the KDOT secretary, and that was all because we had Watkins able to open some doors for us and help us with those meetings. Kansas Health and Environment, Kansas Rural Housing Resources. I mean, it really is tremendously helpful to have them on site and able to guide us through as we visit Topeka and work with others across the state. And so with that, we're presenting for your review the contract itself. There's no cost increase over our current arrangement at $6,500 a month. And so we are recommending approval of the lobbying consulting services contract with Watkins Public Strategies as presented to be funded through the economic development portion of our 1-cent sales tax.
I will make that motion without having to repeat it.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Parsons and a second by Commissioner Vasquez. Any further discussion? Any from the public? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? 5-0. Motion passes. Definitely a huge thank you for all that you've done. Also would like to extend my gratitude to Representative Francis for all the help he's done as well on the legislature. So, gotta say, we got good things coming. Moving on to item number 9, letter of intent for Air Products.
Okay, so Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, as you recall, the City of Liberal has been in talks with the Air Products Helium team for close to a year regarding the purchase of land south of the Air Museum. The survey and appraisal have been completed, and the formal letter of intent is attached with no revisions from the previous commission meeting. This was tabled at the last commission meeting in order to present it to the Airport Advisory Board prior to approval. Brad, Commissioner Parsons, Brian, Bertha, and I all attended that meeting today. We basically feel at the conclusion of that meeting that due to the proximity of the land to the taxiway, we might need to update our recommendation to table this until we receive final confirmation from the FAA on whether or not we can sell that land and get it approved for non-aeronautical use. Brian, do you want to expand upon that at all, or?
According to, Amy from the FAA was off today, so I wasn't able to get with her. So I called Matt Jacobs with Lochner. What he said is, what he thinks he's done with other airports is they have been able to sell land that has been up close to the airport, but what they've had to do was designate it as non-aeronautical use. So they have been able to sell that property. So it just depends on what the FAA decides if we're going to be able to or not. So I think what we'll do is we'll just wait to see what Amy says tomorrow, because she will be back in the office tomorrow. And then I will get back with everybody and see what we want to do.
But we have the land on the other side of the road already appraised, don't we?
So that did come up in discussion about possibly veering them towards another piece of land. I know that time is maybe an issue with them and they're looking for something with a quicker turnaround. So we're kind of looking at all these parcels to see what we've surveyed and appraised already possibly, if this isn't going to be an option. Their biggest issue is the proximity to the taxiway, that it's basically prime real estate for aviation. And I understand that. I also understand the need, for the land sale fund to be working for the city. So did you want to add to that at all, or?
And that's been vacant for who knows how long, and who knows how long it's going to sit vacant. So we don't know.
The FAA may say that they can't have direct use of that area, right? If they were to put aviation in there, they might not be able to use it the way that the advisory board envisions that it could be utilized. And if they tell us it can't be used that way, it might be an easy decision to make in favor of Air Products.
Because we still got to develop land to the north of the Air Museum and north of the airport maintenance shop. So it just depends on what the FAA says. So
So at this point, though, not to delay it any further, would it be prudent to go ahead and approve it based on FAA approval? Or do we just continue to delay this for another meeting?
I think you're better off just taking no action, and then when Scarlett and Brian hear back from FAA, if they say this is something that can come to fruition, if the commission and majority wants to go forward, then, you know, then that can get put back on the agenda, and then all of you can make a decision. But I'm really hesitant to say, we'll go ahead and approve it contingent upon that happening. I think that's just problematic. It'd be better if we just get all the ducks in a row and figure it out before they bring it back to you. And that may be next meeting, or it may be the meeting after that. I have no idea how long.
She'll be in office tomorrow, so I should hear back pretty quick.
Is there a process to,
It's already on the docket, right? We've already submitted it for approval, and we are waiting for a response.
Right.
And so at this point, we don't have the other approval that we need every time we make a land sale anyway. But that's what you were talking about. That's what's on the docket right now.
It was my understanding that the FAA had already approved it. I misunderstood in the conversation. And kind of the reason we're here is we typically don't do LOIs for airport land sales. So this typically isn't displayed to the public in this manner. We typically just handle it. We wait for FAA approval and we go through the process. They want to give their intent on purchasing the land so they can plan accordingly. And so basically, we probably do need to wait to make sure the FAA says it is okay. But
Yeah, and we are kind of changing our process a little bit, so that way things will be a little different, so.
I visited with Jeff after the meeting. Right now, we get the survey done, we get the appraisal done, then we get FAA approval. We're gonna flip that, we're gonna get FAA's approval before we do anything else. We're gonna go ahead and survey the land that we have available, so that would be readily available when somebody comes in and says they wanna buy it. That's one step that we get to subtract from there. And then we'll just have to go with FAA approval, give it.
Yeah, I would like to see us go ahead, and talking to Brad and
Get it all
Scarlett.
surveyed out.
Let's go ahead and get those lots all surveyed. The surveys aren't gonna change, the appraisals will change over time.
Right.
But the surveys will stay the same. If we have that already done, then that's one step that we don't have to take when it comes time to sell something. It'll speed up things by a lot. So I would suggest that we do something like that.
And
Brian's gonna present us with a copy of every land that's been surveyed, that we have a current up-to-date survey on. So we'll have that readily available anytime anybody wants to check it out. The land you're talking about across the road has not been surveyed. The other parcels have,
it's on,
to the east of that.
But the
all of
two
that's been
between it
surveyed.
hasn't.
right.
And if you go over there, remember, you have no road. You're gonna have to put a road in. We're trying to make it better. It's a
And,
process.
yes, and we understand that Air Products wants to move this project forward and have confirmation from us. We will communicate with them this specific situation, and we will stay on top of our communication with the FAA to try to get something. I will intend to get it back on the next commission agenda so that we can help move it forward. We want to be open for business, and we want to be viewed that way. We understand the Airport Advisory Board's opinion, so we're just trying to balance those two.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns? In that case, no action. Thank you. Moving on to item number 10, ordinance number 4636, common consumption area.
Okay, so Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, the city held a special meeting on June 10th, 2025 to explore the option of passing a common consumption ordinance. At the request of local downtown business owners, the primary goal of establishing the ordinance is to, number one, address the growth in eating and drinking establishments in downtown Liberal. Number two, allow for customer movement between businesses. And number three, provide legal structure for special events and block parties to take place with proper permitting by the vendors. At the conclusion of that meeting, you will recall that there was a consensus to move forward with the drafting of the ordinance. We are excited, no matter how you decide tonight, that we will be able to complete our community event planning guide and have it out to you at the next agenda. This is just one of the final things that we need to nail down in order to move forward with that, and we hope that that will lead to better communication between the city and the public as far as special event planning is concerned. They will have accessible forms and outlines online for being able to better prepare themselves so that there's never a conflict or an issue when they come to City Hall and request to have any type of event. So the only thing that I have heard, and Keely, you can expand if you want to, I did receive one comment regarding the common consumption map and that it did not include the nightclub area, but that's the only feedback I received from the time we had the special meeting until today. And that came in a few minutes before I walked in here. But I wanted to make sure that I was transparent and express that.
You know, I've had one concern brought to me, and I don't know how important it is or how much of a problem it's gonna be, but in that common consumption area, you've got a couple of private parking lots that are included in that. And so, you know, I don't know what kind of, what we need to do to address that, if anything, but it's a concern. One of the property owners had just reached out to me and expressed a little bit of concern about that, so.
It does say on here that should not be consumed in public parking lots, so that should take care of that. On section 2, paragraph B.
We kind of knew that there was gonna be some area there that we were gonna have to kind of, and I think that was the good thing about keeping it as small as we did, a smaller area to have to police or control, which we had said from the get-go.
I would assume they could post that, you know, private
Signage.
property, you know,
Yeah.
no alcohol allowed on premises, or, no trespassing except for, you know. Can they post that and that have any effect at all?
Well, if it's on public property, obviously, in front of like.
Right, I'm talking about the 2 private parking lots that are included in our common consumption area.
I think, they could have like a trespass sign on it, but they could put a trespass sign up. But then you're gonna make it pretty difficult for law enforcement to patrol that and take care of that issue, because they're trying to find people specific that are consuming, these alcoholic beverages while they're walking to the parking lot, or walking to their car, or trying to finish before they get in their car potentially. So, short answer is, yes, they probably could, but I don't know how effective it would be.
Okay. And I don't know how big a concern it is to them. They just both, one of them brought it up to me, so.
And I would gather that's probably on the back side over there, I'm guessing.
Well, they're
Off
both.
of the Lincoln
Yeah, they're
area,
both.
Lincoln and Third
They're both
and that.
off of Lincoln.
Yeah. And I don't think we're gonna see too much physical foot traffic in that area, I would say. You're gonna see bulk of it coming down Second, Main Street, that's where you're gonna see it. Lincoln was more of an event type thing. We knew we needed that area so that if,
Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
like, as Vasquez stated, it's specifically prohibited to consume in that area. So,
yeah.
if it's known, law enforcement can at least respond, even if they don't have a criminal trespass up. If they see somebody consuming, they can use their discretion deciding if they're gonna give them a cited violation or not. So, you'd hope it's not a huge issue,
Right.
Yeah.
and hopefully we've put enough thought and foresight into this that we don't have a lot of issues with the application of this ordinance if you guys pass it tonight. But sometimes something pops up and you have to readdress it and modify the
Yeah.
ordinance.
Yeah.
and,
Sure.
Then we did.
Yeah, and you're right, paragraph B does address that.
So my understanding is this is not for just special events, this is 365 days a year. Okay, because I was looking through there to see it
Yeah, from noon to 11:59 at night.
every day.
Yeah, I had conversation with Jeff and Kayla today at lunchtime, and I've talked in depth with Levi about this. There's been some really good feedback about how this is gonna help that development of that downtown area, and Jeff had shared with me that, I think it was a couple weeks ago, that multiple places were completely filled, Brick House was filled, the pizza restaurant was filled, the brewery was filled, so it's just gonna give us, I feel, some opportunity for some growth. I mean, it's gonna have a little bit of growing pains with it, I'm sure, but we got really good feedback from our business owners that are downtown. And the future of the expansion to downtown, I really feel like there's some stuff that goes along with this, especially in the entertainment area. We've had some vision of, hey, creating an entertainment area in a centralized area where people want to go to enjoy themselves. I think this is just something that we can grow upon, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 4636, which will establish the common consumption area in downtown Liberal.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Landry and a second by Commissioner Vasquez. Any further discussion? Any from the public? Are there any business owners who are against it or any for it that would like to speak? Please, Jeff.
I'm Jeff Hall, 122 North Tulane here in Liberal. I'm the owner of Brick House and Midtown. Just wanted to say, Matt and I did have a great conversation about this today. We're starting to see some vibrance. We're starting to see some movement in this downtown area. I think this is the next step to growing this downtown and getting a strong little infrastructure there and moving forward. And I hope that this passes. Thank you.
I do have a question. Do we have everyone on staff ready to apply for the licenses he needs to be able to do this in their?
No, it's not quite the way it works. So we have to send the ordinance to the state, and then once the state gets that, then they have to apply through to the state to be licensed with the common consumption licensee.
Okay.
That can then serve it and follow through with the guidelines. So once this is passed and approved, it's published, we send a copy to the state, and the state process on their end, which I can't tell you what that process looks like. But then that enables, he can apply then for each of his establishments through the state to be part of it. I don't know as far as the linguistics of putting in signage.
That was gonna be my question. When does this take effect? Because we have to do signage, we gotta get that ordered, you gotta figure out what you want it to say. We have to paint, street sidewalks, whatever. We need to really lead on that. One, we're gonna have to order signs, not have a sign.
Because we have from the minute we approve it until the state approves it.
Yeah, well, it could be, it could be a pretty short process.
That's true. That is a fast.
You could pass the ordinance with, whoever made that motion could make a motion to amend it to reflect an effective date of, August 1st. I don't know if that's enough time, so that way the city staff can go through and have compliance done with signage.
Somebody needs to tell us what the signs need to say, if it's just common consumption, if it needs times on it, or
I think we've reviewed some examples, so we can meet after they make a decision tonight. I think at least 30 to 45 days would be probably the best option.
Are there any events that maybe Levi had planned that could come into effect on a deadline or a timeline?
Good question. Didn't think of that one.
Levi here, Tortuga Brewing. I do have a couple things coming up that would be super exciting to have it done in time for my 1 year is coming up in September. I'd like to do something big for that. But as far as I'm concerned, obviously we want to get it done right. We want to have some time to go over everything, make sure that we know what we need to be doing. And so really the sooner the better, so that we can get in the swing of things I would hope that we didn't do it right before that event and then test it with a huge event. So my hope is fairly short timeline on getting it implemented and, getting everybody broken into it before we do a big event. But
So nothing till about September then?
nothing on the books yet.
Would you like to amend yours to August 15, August 1st?
Scarlett says 15.
It says the 15th.
August
I would
15th,
say
I think
30
would
to
be
45 days.
reasonable.
I was talking to Lily about it, because Wichita just passed something similar.
Which is-
and she
they're
did
getting ready to, yeah.
Yeah, she said that it's gonna take a couple months before they get everything ready to
They're
go,
much
so.
bigger than we are.
And do
I'll
what?
have more than 2 blocks.
They are,
Yeah, they're more than 2
yeah.
blocks, dude.
But it's just the Delano district, so it's not that large of a district
So do
either.
we think in August,
I would say 45 days at least.
so that gives us till August 15th?
I think August.
Because if he's got an event September 1st, I do agree with kind of like, the last thing you want to do is put a bunch of people in the cockpit and go, hey, we're gonna go to the moon today, let's launch and see how this works out.
Right. I'd like to do a small pub crawl beforehand.
Maybe a small
Make sure
thing.
that everybody kind of gets that, like,
So
hey, this is
if-
what we're
if we
allowed
were
to do,
to-
this is what we're not allowed to do.
We were to implement this August 15th, do you think 2 weeks of test time? I think that gives the city enough time to kind of put our heads together, signage, painting, things like that. That's 45 days. Brad builds, splash pads and less time than that.
I know there's regulations on where they have to be.
Yeah.
how many you
Yeah.
have to have. We got at least 2 parking lots, we gotta get signage for. But you can't obviously walk across them with
Yeah.
waving your hand.
Got it.
You gotta do one calls, we gotta do,
Okay,
I mean, you don't just skip a call.
sure.
Okay, I do have, I've been receiving some texts here, and just reading this section 2, paragraph B, which says that beverage drinks may be consumed on public property within the CCA, including sidewalks and crosswalks, but shall not be consumed in public parking lots, street parking stalls, or in public thoroughfare, the street, unless the street has been closed to vehicular traffic for a special event or approved by the governing body. Doesn't say anything about private parking lots in there. Can we just say cannot be consumed in parking lots? Eliminate that word. I know we've got a motion, and I apologize for that.
The public part of the parking lot?
Let's remove, strike the word public.
Just make it
Or
parking
slash
lots.
private/public, both,
Or change it that way, one or the
that
other.
way you're safe.
If that's all of you, I mean, you.
I understand his concern.
You definitely can, yeah.
Yeah,
If the majority wants to do it, I'd be fine.
Can I weigh in on kind of my understanding
Yeah, yeah.
of how it's worked everywhere else?
sure.
Private entities are allowed to opt in or opt out. And if they
Okay.
opt out, you're not allowed to bring it on their property.
Okay.
So I don't know if that would probably be a question for Lynn, whether parking lots would be included in that, but I know everywhere that I've been, and I've been going around and trying to find these places that are doing it
Yeah.
already. And there very much is a very clear line, hey, we allow it here, we're participating in the common consumption, or we do not allow it here, we're not participating in the common consumption. And the expectation is that you pay attention to those signs before you enter.
Okay, so your understanding then would be, one reason not to have private parking lot in this is because a business that does have private parking could bring
Could
this in.
potentially say, hey, we
Which the 3
do
we currently
want
have
to.
don't have any parking lots themselves, but, I could see why you don't want to exclude it. Or ban the private parking lot.
Mostly because you can opt out of it. So
Yeah,
that-
is that language in this ordinance, though, so they can opt out?
No, it just says public, I mean, it specifically says where you can't, in one of those places, public parking, so there's no prohibition there. If you want to put
In the
private
privates.
I mean, the city has a private parking, or has a public parking lot in the district, but there are also 2 private parking lots included in the district as well. I would just assume, if we're not gonna allow it in public parking, let's don't allow it in private parking lots as well, and just take care of it, because that's really, just looking at the map, there's not much else in there except buildings and streets. I mean, alleys and things, so that would kind of address that problem. Just take care of all of it.
So, I have a question, just to play devil's advocate on this. Let's say we ever expanded into the Greer House, but that parking lot is public, but the business treats it as a private, and they wanted to have an event there, how? And this is just getting into the weeds of it.
But that, I think that's where you run into the problem of saying you can't do parking lots, right?
Exactly.
Because you have an entity, if you buy that and you have a restaurant there, you're doing something there, and you decide you're gonna have a, I don't know, an Oktoberfest event. You can't have it in the parking lot because we've strike from the parking lot. I mean, I understand that we have an entity that says, well, I have a private parking lot and I don't want that to spill over to my parking lot. I would probably say at that moment in time, that entity needs to say, I'm gonna put signage up that says private property, you know, no drinking, whatever, in the hopes that it would be, am I correct, Lynn, that it would be?
I would say if you guys pass something like this, I would put it more on the onus of, if that private entity says, I don't want it, this is my parking lot, then I would say the city should be responsible for putting up signs at the rest of the county. That puts that sign, it seems more fair. I mean, I'm not saying you have to, but I mean, it seems like it would be more the right thing to do.
Sure. Taking the cost off of that entity
Yeah, I
of,
mean, you could put in here, unless specifically signed otherwise by the owner of that property, which would mean you can't consume it there unless, I mean, you could put it either way, you could say it's not allowed on private or public parking. Maybe it'd be easier to say it is allowed unless there's signage to the front.
sure.
That would make sense. And then the city's responsible for putting up the signs if anyone wants to opt out of it. If you do it the other way, then you're gonna have it's not allowed unless there's a sign, so we're gonna have signs saying this is public consumption area, now you're gonna have a sign that says, oh, you can consume here, you know what I mean?
So how do I need to amend it? Cause I think we've gone through about 6 different layers of amendment here.
If we're going this deep into it, and we're gonna give it an August 15th deadline anyway, do we want to?
Put on the next agenda, and then meanwhile, is there, I mean,
There is a consensus.
there is a majority consensus that this is gonna happen, correct? I think Ron was wanting different days, he said at the workshop, but at least we had 3 people that said, yeah, we're gonna Kansas statute.
Okay, do you mind
So,
wording that? Okay. Yeah.
No, I just think we might be overkill because if you look at the statute by the state of Kansas, consumption of alcohol on private premises that it is not the private premises that's serving the alcohol is illegal in all common access areas anyway. So it kind of supersedes that. So the only way you could be doing consumption on any private property is if that private property is owned by the club that has that actually has the license for the CCA. No one else would be able to use that anymore.
Or who has licensed into it, I'm guessing, right, who has applied to.
Right, if somebody
be
has a
part of
private
that.
parking lot and they would like to participate, they would have to apply for the
and
CCA
get it
license
approved.
with the state of Kansas, and then they would be able to do it in that parking lot, but they would be legally prohibited from that if they're not licensed. Anyway, so somebody who just has a private parking lot in the area, it's already restricted by Kansas state law.
going back to the Greer House, if that gets developed, I mean, the person would have, who develops it, I mean, you'd have to expand your CCA, right? 'Cause that, I mean,
Right.
that doesn't even cover this now.
And when we expanded, we can add the
You have to come
inclusion
back
of that parking
anyway.
lot. So we can fix that problem at that time.
It's not a problem.
They would have to apply for it and get it approved.
Well, no, it's because we have public parking lot excluded, and that's a public parking lot for the Greer House.
Right.
That could probably be handled with a expansion of premise though, correct?
Right. Well, if we expand the CCA to include that area in the future, then the person who applies that has the business there then could include that parking lot as part of their application, and then it would include that as an area.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, to answer your question on the date, August 15th would work for me.
If we can get it put together, if the city can put it together by the 15th with signage.
So,
Keep it saying,
I'm just trying to clarify, you can, this basically only applies to the side.
Sidewalks and special events.
Essentially.
Unless it's closed.
Right, right? Unless it's
So
closed.
just the side.
That's correct.
And crosswalks.
And crosswalks.
Yeah.
Stay in the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a free-for-all.
Don't want people to get in trouble for crossing the
Yeah.
If the
street.
city closes a street, Brad, if the city closes a street, it can be consumed in that street.
Right,
That-
right. If the streets,
Yeah,
otherwise it's just side.
Yeah.
correct.
I think, Matt, I think what the motion needs to be amended just for the effective date of August 15th.
Okay,
And then if we have to amend it at a future date, then we will. We'll come back and address that issue. And if we don't have to, then we won't. You just amend your motion to make the effective date of section number
was it B2 or something like that?
5,
Number 5,
or number 6, I'm sorry.
number 6,
Sorry. Number 6, the ordinance shall take effect, effective
August 15th.
2025.
Okay. Motion to approve ordinance number 4636 with amend to the original motion for number 6 for an approval date or start date of August 15th, 2025.
Your second stands? Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? All opposed? 4-1, motion passes. Moving on to item number 11, Resolution 2434, intent to levy a property tax exceeding the revenue neutral rate.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Resolution 2434 is the intent to levy a property tax exceeding the revenue neutral rate. This resolution would serve as our official notice to the Seward County Clerk of our intention to exceed the revenue neutral rate. This resolution provides an estimated mill rate, and the final mill rate will be determined when we hold our R&R hearing on August 26th of 2025. At this time, we recommend the approval of Resolution 2434.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2434, intent to levy a property tax exceeding the revenue neutral rate.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Commissioner Parsons. Any further discussion? Any from the public? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? 5-0, motion passes. Moving on to item number 12, Arc Star Group Airport Analysis Report.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, this is just an informational item. As you know, we entered into a consulting agreement with ArcStar Group for airport consulting services, market analysis, and some of our key performance indicator operations stats, essentially. So we wanted to bring that back to you just so you can see the value of what we are getting out of that report. Some of the key highlights, we were able to determine there's been a 14% increase in outbound passenger enplanements compared to May of last year, which is excellent. 7-point increase in our outbound load factor, which is essentially the percentage of the plane that's filled when it takes off. It also allows us to see how we compare to other EAS airports in the country, as well as how we compare to EAS airports that are operated by SkyWest. It's obviously in our favor to continue to perform well for SkyWest and in the EAS service. And so we always want to know kind of how we're doing compared with others. And so you can see in that report where we're at in terms of percentile for our performance, just the number of passengers throughput that we have there. It also gives us really great information on our airfare pricing and how competitive it is with others. The report details the top destination markets, not just, okay, they're flying from Liberal to Denver, but where they go after that. We were able to see Denver was the main destination, followed by Las Vegas and Miami. Information we didn't know before. And so that really does allow us to really tailor our marketing messages, really know kind of who our key audience is, where they're going, and how that all ties together with our ability to advocate for better connections with those outbound flights from Denver Airport. So it really is enabling us to do a lot with all the data that they were able to pull together. We were able to see for fourth quarter of last year, the average one-way fare for Liberal was 26% lower than Garden City Airport, 9% lower than Wichita, and only 3% higher for Kansas City. Again, 95% of our top 15 market destinations were at a lower fare than competing airports around us. This is all great information that we can publicize and be able to market to people who are looking for, well, what's my best price? Does it make sense to have to drive somewhere, stay overnight, and then pay a higher fare to reach their destination? So we wanted to be able to show that. There is some operations information as well. From January to May, we didn't have any, we had 100% controllable completion factor, which is our ability to get the plane going, meaning there were no maintenance issues or crew staffing resource issues, which is excellent. Again, we want to be able to send this information on for United and for the EAS group to be able to see how we're performing and really be able to advocate for our value and what EAS is able to do for us. We have already used statistics from this to be able to pass along for SKC as we advocate and talk with Senator Moran's office and making sure that our EAS funding at the federal level is stable. So again, this is just informational. Happy to answer any questions. It's a pretty lengthy report, but there is a ton of useful information in it. So we really appreciate that.
I know this is just opening the door, but are there any conversations yet on the likelihood and what else we need to do to then begin that second flight, kind of like Salina did? Which I know I looked at the numbers. We're not near where Salina's at.
Sure.
They're number one, I think, on the EAS.
Right.
But what it would take, at least for Dodge or Liberal, to work together to get that extra line.
This is really a starting point for us, just to know who our audience is and where they're going. I do feel, in talking with Gary from ArcStar, it took Salina some time to be able to add that second destination. They really worked with them. It is exciting to see the increase that we've had May of this year compared to May to last year. Because if you remember, we started doing airport marketing in April of this year. So to see that spike already, just telling people that we have an airport and this is where it goes. And people are being reminded of that now. We're able to see the return on investment of the marketing. The idea is that we get started here, we establish our baseline, and we really work at the marketing approach and knowing our audience, building up those volumes, making ourselves marketable to SkyWest and United to be able to add another flight destination. And so all of this information really starts to build the case for us.
And I have been working with United and SkyWest for about a year and a half, 2 years now to work on getting another flight, but it will take a while, so.
Will the data too? Well, I imagine they have this in their own internal process, but this gives us also a hands up on being able to say where we need to be and how we market as well.
Yes, yes, and this data will help, so, yeah.
I'll mention, because it's just a quick fun one, where we had some business owners coming to town to visit, and they would fly to Wichita and then drive the 3 hours here, and then drive straight back, or go spend the night and then drive straight back to fly away, and they were going to Denver and then back home.
Right.
So we told them the first time, but they didn't take it seriously. But the second time, we showed them the airport and said, you can fly straight in. You don't need to go somewhere else. So it is definitely the marketing and then just letting people know it's here. And it'll save you 3 hours of bad weather sometimes. So it's important. Thank you. Any comments? All right. In that case, we are moving on to item number 13, employee insurance renewal.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, today I'm presenting our recommendation for the renewal of the city's health, dental, and life insurance policies for the upcoming plan year. In your packets, you will find information regarding the renewal options, cost projections, and rates. So for this year, for our health insurance, I'm very excited to share that our renewal came in excellent. It was a 0.8% increase for the initial projection, which was about $27,000 increase. that is a huge improvement from last year. Last year, we had 18% increase for just the health alone. So we did a really good job this year with that. Again, in your packets, you will find 5 renewal options with Blue Cross and Blue Shield that was provided by IMA. We are recommending that the city renews with option 3, which is fully insured Results RX formulary. This option does result in an actual decrease of 2.8% for a cost savings of $101,529. With this change, this option does come a change for the prescription drug coverage, which will help us manage future increased costs for prescription drugs. This switch goes from Select RX to Results RX, which in talking with IMA, they did say that this was a change we were going to have to make in the near future. People or companies that are renewing with Blue Cross or having new contracts, they don't even get the current that we have. Like I said, this is just to contain the costs in the future. About 63 members will be impacted by this, and the most common medications are allergy and common cold, and a lot of those have over-the-counter alternatives, and Blue Cross will actually contact those members directly to help them in the transition with this change. We also recommend that we keep the current employee contribution rate the same as this current year. For dental insurance, we see a 9% increase, which is $16,531. This is due to the high claims, but last year we had a 10% increase, so we did a little bit better this year. And we also recommend to keep the same plan design and the contribution percentage is the same for employees. For our life insurance, let's see. Last year, we actually transitioned to a new company. It's called The Standard. And with that transition, we had a guaranteed rate of 2 years. So there are no changes to that. We are just recommending to renew with them as well. So in summary, IMA recommends the following actions for the City of Liberal's 2025 plan year renewal. The first one is to renew the health insurance with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, option 3. Approve the contribution rates as presented, and renew the dental life insurance policies with no changes.
My understanding, usually tier 4s and tier 5s are specialty drugs anyway.
Correct.
So, and those copays are usually a lot higher on the retail side. Wouldn't this actually be a savings for most of our members if we're capping it at the 150 or the 250?
There is one, I believe it's the tier 4. That one is the one that, I believe it's only 13 members on there. And in the long run, yes, it will be a cost savings for them as well, because then at that point, they're going to have an alternative that is more generic. And even some of those brand name drugs will no longer be covered even on the current formulary that we have.
And that's really the only change on that. It's just going to be who the prescription
That is it. Yeah.
For the saving, for a decrease.
Yes, and like I said, the plan design, everything else is structured the exact same, which is great. And like I said, because we are not having any other major changes, we feel like this is the best time to make that switch. Hopefully next year it's a really good renewal year as well, but you just never know, and we don't want to have too many changes in one year.
So I stopped by your office and asked about the increase. I thought you said 8%.
No.
Then I see this and it's 0.8%.
0.8, yes.
But now with the new savings, I mean, we're at negative 2.8%. So, I mean, these are great numbers.
We better put a big red mark on the calendar for this year, because
Yeah.
We haven't seen anything like this for a long, long time. Yeah, instead of a $100,000 decrease, we usually take a $300,000
Yeah.
increase, so this was great.
It was
Thank you
really
for
good.
all the work on.
Yeah, and this is all on the members. Like I said, they've been, I feel like once we implemented with IMA and we've been having those employee meetings every year. They've just have been receiving more information and been more educated on how to have better usage of their insurance, and a lot of, go to in-network providers, which has helped a lot for this year's renewal, so.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you for your hard work.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the recommended city insurance plan as presented.
I second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Vasquez and a second by Vice Mayor Landry. Any further discussion? Any from the public? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? 5-0, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item number 14, Lorraine Avenue Improvement Appeal.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'm before you tonight with a request to appeal the required infrastructure to be put in. When a individual acquires a piece of property that is platted and has right-of-ways, the city ordinance, subdivision regulations, zoning all say that the infrastructure, the public portion of the infrastructure has to be put in before the lot can be built on. That is the roads, water mains, sewer mains. We had two individuals who are here tonight for this. Ms. Rosa Quinones and Mr. Israel Camacho purchased 4 parcels on Lorraine Avenue, which is just north of 8th Street, across from Mahiran Park. They have been following the steps to develop these for a car lot and some residential lots. They've been through the processes of rezoning one of the lots. They have been through the processes of applying for a KDHE floodplain development permit. They're currently out there doing engineered fill to get the lots where they are developable. The subdivision regulations, however, require in Article 7, Section 101, that prior to any building, all streets, gutters, alleys have to be put in before the lot can be built on, and it states that streets shall be constructed of concrete, asphalt, or asphaltic concrete, and no gravel or sanded roadways shall be constructed, which gives me, that's the only option I have. There's no waiver for me. They did provide plans, which are in the packet, showing a 35 feet in width concrete road at the beginning of this project. They've been, trucking along. They have appealed further back in the subdivision regulations under Article 11, Section 101 and 102. It does give them the opportunity to appeal, which bypasses planning and zoning, comes directly to you. You can, as the commission, can make an agreement with them as the developer to lessen the required improvements to anything that you feel is decent for the situation. So I'll step back and let them come up and speak to you. I would ask that you keep in mind, if we're going to waive the standard improvements, that this is still in a public right-of-way. So if we allow them to do less than standard improvements, who will be maintaining it, whatever it is, and that if you decide to lessen it, you come to an agreement with them of exactly what material will be installed, depth, width, whether sidewalks will still be installed, because the road will still be in a floodplain after this is done. And that's all I have for opening. I'll let them come up and plead their case before.
Rosa Quinones. So as he kind of explained, that is the city requirements. Our plans right now, we did do zoning back a couple years ago to do a first lot industrial, but right now our main focus is more on our own private home for our family as a single home. There are 4 lots there, but right now our biggest hardship more than anything is the financial part of everything. So we're focusing on our home and our home only, and, of course, city improvements and streets, developing streets, that's a large number. It's a big number for two individuals who don't have that type of financial benefits. As he explained, we've tried to go on the route of maybe having some type of grants or some type of help financially through state or city, but there's none that we qualify for due to it just being a single home family. It's not anything for the public or, right now the street is Lorraine Avenue, as he explained, it's 816 Lorraine Avenue. It doesn't go into any public access. It actually leads into a lot that's empty. It's in a vacant lot. It's a private-owned vacant lot. I failed to bring a map to kind of show you guys, but I'm sure maybe you guys have it. So we are requesting an appeal or maybe to apply for a waiver for that, as he explained. Again, the biggest thing is the financial hardship part of it that we don't have. It will delay all the plans that we have for what would be a home property now. So we're kind of hands tied to do anything going forward to improve anything on the land. So that is what our biggest concern is now, just because the financial part of it, there's no grants or there's anything that can help us to help improve that area. So unless he has anything else to say, that would probably be all I have for you guys.
And do you guys own the 4 lots here?
Yeah, so he owns 3 legally, and I have the one that I applied for this meeting here, 816 Lorraine, and which is where we have our main plan for a home, single home family. Now, I know, I think they had suggested maybe giving, like he said, a lesser plan on as far as asphalt or any other type of material besides cement. But again, the financial part of it, getting the money or the needs for this type of funding we are limited and we are hands tied, so.
So at this point, your appeal is to leave it a dirt road as it is in its current state?
It's a dirt road, but I think we've had a previous meeting with Scarlett, and we suggested off the dirt road, we could probably do our own sidewalk for our property, so lead into a driveway. So it is 8th Street, Lorraine is off of 8th Street, and there's really nothing there. There's no transportation anywhere other than to our own private area. Unless, the person that's going off of Lorraine decides to build something, which I think previously there was an antenna. They took that down, and so now it's vacant. It leads into, it's probably in the backfields of the baseball fields for the National Beef Complex that they have there. So it leads into nothing, absolutely nothing. And then it would just be our home that would be the access to anything. So it's private property. Now, all the areas, the homes in the area surrounding, none of them have anything leading into, which I understand it's grandfathered in, but it wouldn't, if it were to be approved or, the waiver would be granted, it wouldn't visibly make a difference as far as the neighborhood. It would just be the house built there and we would have the sidewalk in. But again, the funding for the city that is required for the street it's a large number. We've gotten quotes. We didn't just say, no, we're not gonna do it. We've gotten quotes. We've tried to, lessen the cost as we go, but it's a big cost and it's not the type of funding that we have.
Is the house you're trying to build gonna be just on lot 816, or are you planning to expand into the other lots as well?
Due to the financial part, right now, our focus is just that one house on 816. We don't have the fundings for more at this time. And if we were to think of so in the future, I acknowledge that we'd have to come back or maybe actually make what you guys require of it, but for now, it's just the one home on 816.
So you don't have an intention to go ahead and do the commercial lot in the front right now?
Financially, right now, we do not plan on moving forward for that. It's just our focus would be just the home.
What about utilities? Where do utilities come in regard to this? Because I'm assuming this is in city limits, right?
Yeah, so I believe the water line is already set in place and the gas and the electric.
Yeah,
The waters, the sewer, I believe, is what we still need. It's still a work in progress project. We have like he said, we're still needing the fill. We're still in the process of, getting everything ready even before we start putting this home in. But this would probably, we're just trying to get advanced into making sure that we can move forward, or if we need to do something else within that property. I know that those lots have been vacant for a very long time. I don't think anyone has, for as long as I've been here, and I've been here most of my life, nothing's ever been done there. It's been vacant, so.
Keith, were you able to get a hold of Mr. Marcellus? I think I met with you guys a couple years ago and told you you'd have to go through the street process or whatever, and there was a fence and some trees that would have been in the street right away that Mr. Marcellus moved so a street could be put in, and I think he's got some experience. Have you visited with him at all?
Yeah. Quickly, to answer Jeff's question, there is sewer along the west side of the property running north and south. They've already run one private line over into the south lot, so the sewer is readily available. The gas company and the electric company have both put things through Lorraine Avenue. The only thing they still have to tap into is the water line, which I believe is on the south side of 8th Street right there, and doesn't, but they do have a water meter for the front lot of 1011.
Yeah.
So, at the request of Mr. Warren, I did contact the property owner to the east, Mr. Marcellus, because when this project was started, Mr. Marcellus had a fence that was well out into the right-of-way. In discussion of this improvement being made, Mr. Marcellus agreed, took down his existing fence that was in the right-of-way, moved it back to his property line, and reconstructed his fence. The Marcelluses are not, their statement was they moved their fence believing that this improvement was gonna be made. They think it should be seen to follow through to be made. That's the only complaint I've had about it from any of the neighbors. The vacant lot to the north that had a tower on it that was taken out a year and a half, 2 years ago. It's in a trust. I don't know that anybody even cares for it or is around. I would also, one other note, there's an almost identical street called Lawrence, just outside of this picture right over here, that if you lower the standards, you've kind of set a precedent that in the next situation when somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to develop these lots, then you kind of got to do the same for everybody, so.
The Lawrence Street is in or not in?
The Lawrence Street has not been put in, and there's a lot for sale on the north side of it. At the very end of it, the lot is for
Are
sale.
there any residents on that street?
There's a mobile home, a single mobile home.
There is a mobile
home.
home that is not livable, and people have come in and been like, hey, we're gonna buy that, we're gonna move the mobile home out, we're gonna build a house on it. And I've said, once you build the street in, you can. And so it has limited development in those areas, because putting in a street is a very expensive.
Have you got an estimate on what that street would cost?
$144,000 for the
The lowest.
344?
144.
144.
Yeah, at the cheapest, I guess.
What size of home are you planning to build on there?
300 by 35.
About 100?
200 yards.
El tamaño de la casa. Yeah, no, la casa.
So when you
20
first-
by 30, 20 by 54, like a double wide mobile home.
Like about that size.
Will it be a stick built, or is it gonna be a modular?
They have talked about a modular. It
Modular.
would be required to be on a foundation at that point, but a double wide modular on a permanent foundation does meet with zoning requirements.
So when you originally bought the property, under contract, was it explained to you at that time
It was not.
that the road would have to be put in?
No, it was not explained that the road had to be put in or that we were sitting on a flood zone or a floodplain. So we've had to work with the state to get all that, to be able to fill it approved, and, you know, we're still on that process. It's still an open case because we're not done filling, because again, that's another expense. It's dirt, but it's expensive too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Your other two homes, or two lots, do you
Uh-huh.
plan to develop them into homes?
I mean, in the future, long future, nothing new coming now because of the whole, going back to the biggest hardship
I
is
guess
the
the next
financial
question
part.
would be, would you be willing, are you gonna keep those homes if you build them, or do you plan to build them to sell them off?
He's put a thought onto, obviously, we don't need 4 homes of our own, so it's a thought that we could either sell them off or maybe even keep them and put mobile homes and rent. But again, hardship wise, it would be like a step by step, and it won't be it won't be in one big move. It would probably be step by step, and it would take years for us to get that far.
The reason I asked would be because this would be a good, spot RHID, where if all 4 lots get developed with their home, their business, and then 2 other lots that you could sell to a builder who builds them, there's enough funds in those property taxes to pay off in 25 years, if we did a prepaid RHID there.
I believe Karen Pryor had talked to them about an RHID and said because it was only one side of the street being developed, the other side is held by a family and will not go for sale, that an RHID was not viable there, but that's just what I've heard in my office.
Yeah, we've looked at a couple, of course, we're not all connected, and we've gone the ways that we think we could go, and at all times, we don't qualify for it, or there's nothing that they can do to help us at this time.
Does that
Other
make
than
sense to
these
you,
two,
though?
this road and
Do
this
you
road
have to
here.
have both sides?
It's like
About
this in
the
town.
qualifications of the RHID.
Are there other dirt
I think
roads that
it
are
would
in the
be
city limits that
very
aren't being
tough
developed
to
because of
pay
this
out.
requirement?
Well, 150,000,
There are other places in
2,500.
town where
It's if the business comes in too, though, we'd have to.
But then they actually have to be able to build the
that has
houses
been
too.
the problem on McDonald.
Well,
so they-
I'd say they'd sell the lots if they're willing to go that route.
Yeah, but how does that work, like, if they can't sell them, how does that work on the backside of that? You know, if they sell them, if nobody wants to buy them, how does that work?
Yeah, eventually no one buys them.
Yeah.
Then we miss out on whatever, we have a developed street with lots available.
But they,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I
And we'll
think they've
collect on
actually got a
whatever
letter that
is
says they've
developed.
got
What's your
to
remedy
get
if you allow them to
permission
do it, if they don't
build
have roads
on
and they
those
have
lots, I
houses,
think.
how you
Yeah,
can
we'll
enforce
build
it?
the street.
The roads and
We'll
houses.
build it.
With the hopes of recouping it on the backside off of the RHID. Yep.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
How about the connection to the water and all that, because it doesn't run.
Our house is
All
on
pretty
Hancock
close.
Street. It is
That
dirt.
would be on them.
It was never made to come up.
It could be,
before
but
these
we could
buildings, so
split that up.
there's nothing to force him to come back to pay the road.
I was just trying to.
Oh, I'm sorry, my big
Kind
egg
of
is
has
in
the
your way.
same problem on,
So basically,
out behind the Midway truck stop out there on that road. The roads are just atrocious, because they were never done to standards, and nobody wants to maintain them, and the county doesn't want to pay the money. It's the reason of making the infrastructure be put in prior to the buildings being.
You say they have, permission from the state to build on those lots now?
They have permission, they have a Kansas Department of Agriculture, or a Department of Water Resources fill permit to place engineered dirt fill to build up the pads and compact the pads to get the pads ready. It is just to add the dirt.
So they still don't have,
Once they have the dirt in there and it is engineered to the, that will place their dirt pads for the 4 lots 1 foot higher than the floodplain. Meaning, right now they can't build on them because they're in the
And they-
floodplain. Once they get the dirt in there, they're out of the flood,
They get a map
lots are
revision,
technically
right?
out of
Yeah.
the floodplain, they can then apply to build on it. They
Yeah.
can't ever put a basement there, but they can.
Shannon, when we developed behind Standard Supply or Big R down there, I know I had to do at least 1 lot, and that was the process. They built the lot up, had it shot in, sent it in, and there is a residence on that lot now. Might ask you why you're saying 816 and maybe not 810 since it's closer to the road?
That's my preferred.
Okay.
It kind of,
'Cause if
the
you had
visions
to-
that we have are a little
I'm
bit
just saying
nicer
if you
back
have-
there than it is closer to the road, because,
Because I'm just thinking if you had to do an approved surface, that it would be less.
yeah,
Because just my feeling is if you develop the commercial lot, there needs to be a street to the back of that lot.
right.
And if you were to try to sell any other properties, or build anything, there would have to be streets to those. As far as building your own residence, I don't know, I still feel like there should probably be a street. But to me, the only consideration would be possibly on my part is if you still had a site plan that showed that you were within the building limits, if there was a curb and gutter in there. I don't know that we can stipulate that you can build that residence and not ever sell it without putting, so that, I think, is where it gets difficult, because I think it's our job to make sure a development happens where, if they try to sell them so somebody else doesn't buy it, and there's not a street, and they think maybe the city's gonna put a street in, and maybe they're not, but,
Well, what we put in with the other developers, but these are developers at that point, is if they don't build in a certain time frame, we claw back those lots that aren't built. And then we sell them off to a builder. Is the way we've done it with
yeah.
the other
So,
ones.
I mean, so are we saying that we should
That's an
look
option.
into the possibility that we could develop it within our HID with the same agreement that they would have to surrender the lots if they didn't develop them within a certain time, and at least start that conversation, not saying that that's what we're gonna do,
If they're willing, yeah.
but we agree that there really needs to be improvements if there's gonna be houses.
Yeah, I think that's right too. If you change your standard, then, you essentially, you have no more standard. But, I think that's worth looking at, doing the RHID or some other
Version.
avenue, yeah. I wouldn't be opposed to that at all.
No, I think that's a really good idea, actually. That's
Do you
helpful.
remember why
They've got to
Chairman Ford said it
understand.
wasn't feasible?
Because.
Just because there's only the 4 lots?
The rest of their properties, if they can develop it within a certain timeframe.
Are this much. because
Gotcha.
I'm
So right now, they own it.
only getting
You know what I mean?
half the taxes back to pay back the RHID that you would.
Do you hear what he's saying?
Yeah.
So the city may be on the hook for,
Whatever doesn't get paid off,
okay,
correct.
let's say it's 500 or 200,000, you may get stuck 100,000 because it runs out.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's still it'd be ultimately up to you guys to decide to proceed with the RHAD knowing that or not, if it got to that point.
You understand the side of it that we were discussing in regards to the RHID, that if we went forward with it and you couldn't build those other lots within a certain amount of time, that you would forfeit those lots to the city and we would have all of that.
Right, I'm getting bits and pieces of it. I'm sure
Yeah.
I'd have to sit down and
Well,
get
it
into
would
more
be-
detail,
it
or
would be
maybe,
some, but I just kind of
Yeah.
want, I'm sure in
yeah. Yeah,
and-
I got bits and pieces,
deep
but
explanations.
and it
So
would be
basically,
something that I would have to sit down and
Yeah.
maybe go back and ask you guys one more time and,
Yeah.
talk about it.
But to streamline it, all of you are kind of, it seems like it pretty much consensus, or at least majority is like, we need it, this is the rule, we need to stick to this rule so we don't open up a can of worms for everybody else, kind of a deal.
Correct. So,
But if
do
there-
you want a motion to deny the appeal? And then we move forward on the other idea?
Yeah, I think because they have the right to appeal,
But this is an official appeal.
Huh? Yeah, I would say it is. They followed the code from what I can tell.
It says in the subdivision region, required improvements shall be directed to the governing body and that action should, an appeal shall be directed to the governing body and that
Action shall be final.
action shall be final. So the appeal is official coming before you, so I think I need a.
Yeah, motion.
Deny, approve.
So I guess on that part first, we're all kind of in an agreement that we won't change standards.
Right.
I mean, I kind of feel a little bit different. I feel like, I mean, they weren't explained at the very beginning and they purchased the property. They're a young couple in an area that's not even being used. So I would just like to find some kind of solution to help them. Because I just feel like, I mean, when you're young and you go and you purchase a land, you have expectations to build a home, and then you're faced with all these obstacles.
Sure.
I feel like it's unfair to them.
Yeah, I think that's where the RHID process that we talk about on the backside of it is there to help them, right? And that what we kind of agreed
but
upon.
there-
Yeah, I would
there
say
is a small
typically, we
possibility.
probably wouldn't have approved an RHID that size. So
Yeah.
if we could actually mathematically make it deal, that would be our effort to help. But there is probably another avenue that we haven't done forever, right, or for a while, but
Talking about
specials.
Special, I was thinking about that.
And.
But if we do
and
a
that would give
special,
them
we're
the
gonna
oppor-
apply it to Marcellus too, though.
What's that?
It would apply to Marcellus.
Yeah, if you do a special, you're adding Marcellus's in.
Yeah.
So does he benefit off that also?
No.
I mean, he could
But
put a gate to it.
what difference would that make?
So a special is you now pay an extra $1,000 on your taxes for 10, 20 years to pay for that street.
Everybody on the street pays.
Everybody on the street. So each one of those lots now has an increased cost to pay off that street.
And I understand that they might not have been told, but basically, when somebody sells a bare piece of ground that has no street, no utilities, that bare lot's worth anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000. Now, there is street on 8th Street, so that lot's probably would be worth more, other than, since there's a street on that corner, they really can't grant access directly to the street, because there's access if you put the road in part way, but typically a developer would know that they're gonna have to pay for all that stuff, and that makes your lot cost 25,000 or 30,000 instead of 5,000. And I don't have any idea what you paid for them, but I imagine the one on 8th Street was more than the other, or you probably bought it as one package, but.
Yeah, it was actually, it was one whole entire thing. ¿En cuánto pagaste?
So if they
For the
built
whole
it
lot.
at 10, 11,
He didn't have to tell them.
they wouldn't have to build the street, would they? If they did a
60,000?
8th Street.
Yeah, their
But-
preference is to.
But they
be
already
away from the
have
street.
Yeah, but what
sewer,
I'm saying, if they built on 10, 11 and they were 8th Street facing driveway, they wouldn't have to build a street, would they? If they just left those 3 in the back?
He originally, for that front car lot, the first site plan asked for an entrance onto 8th Street, and I denied the entrance onto 8th Street due to the high amount of national beef traffic and the fact that there is another, so if we
Access
get
to the
in
road.
entrance, then the street gets put in, we have a driveway this close to the street, and so because I'm gonna make them develop the street, I told them that the entrance had to come out onto Lorraine Avenue from that lot. So I initially denied it just for the amount of traffic on 8th Street.
I was just trying to think of an alternate way, like,
and you're
they-
probably
in
wanting
their
to
conversation.
reserve that lot future for commercial anyway, right? You're not wanting to put a
Yeah, I believe it's industrial,
Yeah,
right?
it's zoned industrial.
industrial, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Guess that's the other question. Does an RHID allow you to RHID a industrial site?
Believe it
That's a good
doesn't.
question.
I think we've looked into it. I don't think it qualified.
So then we'd only have 3 lots to work with.
And so maybe the appeal wasn't probably the way to go. Maybe a waiver would be the best way to go about it. That way, if they were to have other people.
It's the same.
That
Yeah,
is
the
the
appeal
same.
is for a
My
waiver.
thought is, if other neighbors, like you said, your concerns are to give it to their neighbors the same way, probably having the same process set in place like we do and request it as well, and maybe they have different ideas on their budget, on their, I don't know, it's a thought that went through me. I don't know if there's a whole lot of people, I mean, I guess I don't have that side of it. I don't know how, there's a whole lot of people requesting to get something built out there, but that's just where my train of thought is. We're kind of closed in on our options on our end.
No, yeah, because the issue comes in is we also have a few other developers who have had discussions about, well, they can save, just about $1 million if they built their neighborhood that's separate and away from everywhere, but with gravel roads or dirt roads. And as a standard, the city has said we won't allow any homes to be built with anything that's not cement or asphalt. And we've had this discussion over the 3 years, Jeff and myself, with different developers. Because, yeah, if we allow you to do it, then your neighbors may want to, or an entire development may want to. Because they're outside of the city or on the edges. And it would make sense at that time, but I don't think I'm comfortable deviating. I don't know about the rest of you.
No, I don't wanna open up a can that, Pandora's box and you can't close it. Everybody else is all of a sudden gonna want the same. We've just had some recent conversations about roads, what's going in, how quick is it going in, and whatnot. So it's one of those things, it's the wound is still fresh, but.
If they deny your request, I don't know what to do to your cost, but if you're only developing up to 816, you don't have to go to the end of the lot, which may save you a little bit of money if you're not planning on ever developing 822, but eventually when you want to develop it, it's gonna be that much more, because they'll be there ready to put it in up to 816, but just something to think about. And I don't know if RHID is an avenue or not, but it would only apply to those 3 lots if the one's zoned.
Yeah, I mean, I would be willing to, sit down with them and, let's take a look at every possible avenue we can to help get that done. I mean, I sympathize with your plight, I really do, and would love to see those get built, but on the other hand, we can't, I don't see any way we change our standards on that at all.
I think the street would be close as far as covering the cost with 3 houses. I mean, if you had $2,500, I think they've extended RHID to 20 years instead of 14, if I remember right. And so it's 7,500 for three deals, but they wouldn't be up right away, so you'd lose a little bit, that'd be 150,000. So it would be possible that in 20 years, you might recover the cost of the street, but no other improvements.
Right.
So I think at that point, it would take some input from the property owner to make it. Like I say, the bad thing is the streets on the side of the property, not in the middle of the property. And they don't have lots on both sides.
Yeah.
Because that helps too, but.
Okay.
We can always special the shortfall between the commercial lot and part of Marcellus's though. So, you have any?
I mean, like I said, I think you guys kind of know where I stand. I feel like we need to do something to help them because, I mean, yes, we keep talking about future developers, but they're not future developers, and it's not like you guys have people running to move to that area to begin with. And I feel like they were misled to start with by purchasing that land. I don't think anybody goes with the intention to purchase a property where later you're told, no, you can't put your home on there. So that's just where I stand. I think we need to.
Purchase it from the city though, so.
No, I understand
Then I
that.
would feel exactly that way, but.
I just feel like we need to keep our young people in our community, and this is not going towards that. This is pushing more young people out of our community.
So, I make a motion, we deny the appeal and open conversations with other options.
To help them.
I would second that.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion by Mayor Lara and a second by Commissioner Parsons. Any further discussion?
I would say none of us are non-sympathetic.
No,
We all care and are willing to see if we can figure out some other way of doing it, but
Yeah, we want you to understand from wholeheartedly, I'm sure I can speak for all of us, that we truly want to sit down with you and figure out something to try to help.
And I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, because we do sympathize with the fact that, you know, your predicament and your family and what you want to do, so this isn't about, you know, the conversation
Right.
stops here, and I'm sure that my fellow constituents agree
Yeah.
with that 100%, so, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? Any from the public? Okay, all in favor? All opposed? 4-1, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
And please, do schedule a time with Scarlett, and we'll try and meet to see what other avenues we can follow through with. We'll do
I'll
more
reach out
research on
to
the
you.
RHID.
I have her email, so.
Okay.
Okay,
Perfect.
great.
Moving on to item number 15, agreement for Adventure Bay Family Water Park Assessment.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, appreciate the opportunity to come up this afternoon, this evening. It's late now. Long meeting. Today I'm coming up here to talk about Adventure Bay Water Park. We're all excited about it. And what we're working on is a aquatics planning assessment. This is an assessment that would look over the current situation at Adventure Bay Water Park. Also gives options about developing an outdoor swimming pool for current and future needs of the community. This assessment will give us options on moving forward, some things we do need to improve, or it also would have a secondary if we build a new water park. So it would give you multiple options. This assessment would give you pricing. They'll give you how much it's gonna cost each way on some of the things that we're gonna need to address in the near future. So staff is recommending using Water's Edge Aquatics Design out of Kansas City for the amount not to exceed $11,000 to come assess and create the assessment packet for Adventure Bay Water Park. Oh, he's locked out for the save. You want me to repeat that whole thing since Ron was gone? I can start over. Or you think
You're
he was
good.
watching YouTube? Does anybody have any questions about the assessment from Water's
I just
Edge?
have a question. How old is the water park?
2009. So we had a assessment back in 18. Didn't go to the in-depth as we're wanting to go. The guy that we're working with, Brian Hill, is a former liberal high school graduate. I think 98 was
It was before me,
96.
mid-nineties, 95.
Okay, there we go. Somewhere in there, former liberalite. So, got ties to the community, really wants to see something done here at the park. So I think staff, this is something moving forward. We are gonna have to make some hard choices. We're gonna have some discussions. Do we go with the lazy river within the old water park? Do we upgrades to the old system, or do we bulldoze the thing, create a new one? Or do we just eliminate and do a splash pad? I mean, there's options all across the board we could talk about. I think moving forward with this assessment would help us kind of understand, hey, here are our issues at the park. I know the pump house is a big one. I have big concerns on that one. Some of the water pressure, the pumps, we got lines breaking, sand coming into the pools. So we do have a lot of issues. This would highlight some of the stuff. This would also give you a cost of, hey, to upgrade or redo this is gonna be 1.5. Or for a new water park, fresh, you're looking at 15 million. Those numbers, do not quote me on those, I'm just ballparking, all right? I see eyeballs getting crazy here. I'm just throwing that out there, but this will help us get an understanding of where we need to be moving forward. I think we all know that it's vital to have a community park. We bring a lot of people in town, they enjoy themselves, it gives kids something to do. So I think we all know there's a need there, but this, I think, will help us hone in on, okay, what do we need to do more, and kind of specify in that option.
Yeah, I see the need for taking a look at it. My question is, and not because I have any any specific problems or anything, but is Water's Edge the right company to go with? I mean, who have they done work for that we would know? Have you checked out their references, that kind of thing?
We've worked with them in the past, and that's why I went right back to them. We have no issues with them on delivering the last assessment. It just kind of was to me, it was a carrot on a fishing rod to get that 1 cent kind of redone. And so it kind of then got put to the back burner and was never then addressed. So I think Water's Edge is I could get you references. I did not explore
Yeah,
that. I just went back to the company that I worked for in
remember
the
the name,
past.
that's the only thing.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I think it's definitely worth exploring, especially with the discussions we're having, both with the school district about the pool that the college is needing to close down and how we can help them with that process, and then the condition of our own facilities. With also the understanding that the water park is one of the top marked things on the 1 cent sales tax plan when it gets brought out every 10 years. So it is definitely one of the issues we need to keep on the forefront, understanding the community has always asked for something on that.
Yes, sir.
We'll make a motion that we approve the agreement for Adventure Bay Family Water Park Assessment with Water's Edge Aquatic Design for an amount not to exceed $11,000 to be funded from the recreation improvement portion of the 1 cent sales tax.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Vasquez and a second by Commissioner Warren. Any further discussion? Only thing I would say is if you could get some of the references of what other work they've done, that'd be great.
Absolutely. I'll get that to you guys.
And any discussion from the public? All in favor? All opposed? 5-0. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Moving on to item number 16, replacement of the LPD Evidence Building Air Conditioning Unit. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and City Manager. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Hopefully, this is a simple one that won't take us a long, drawn-out conversation, but I'll certainly stand for questions. The air conditioner on our evidence building, if you're not aware, we have the main building where we share with municipal court, and then we have a building just to the south of us, which is our evidence area. The air conditioning unit on that building is about to go defunct. We've had to have it repaired a few times. The recommendation is to replace it. We sought multiple bids. We have 3 of them. The cheapest one is the one that we're actually recommending, and it is $12,000. The reason we are recommending it is it's the cheapest bid coupled with the longest warranty. One of the other bids matches the warranty, but due to this one being a little bit lower, we would request that the commission select that one if you see fit to move forward. I also included wording for a motion, and even though the bid is $12,000, I included a request for $12,500 just to cover any type of slide overage if there was going to be any. I'm not completely familiar with, how the city would handle that if it came into $12,214, for instance. So I would request that you accept that motion of $12,500, even though the bid that we're requesting the city accept is the $12,000 motion. With that said, I will stand for questions.
Do we have any experience with the company that we're going to award with any of the other buildings?
We don't. But we've kind of been exclusive because we got an on-demand, we call, he shows up, takes care of our issues. So we've gotten quotes before from others. I don't think we've ever gotten a quote from this guy, but Keith could probably tell you. I see the guy all over town, so he must be doing work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More discussion, or you want a motion on it?
I'm going to be abstaining. One of them is a brother-in-law. one of the bids.
Got it. Okay. I'll make a motion to approve funding to replace the air conditioning unit for the Liberal Police Department Evidence Building in the amount not to exceed $12,500. Purchase will be taken from the budget line item within the police department's general fund
And we purchased through down the block heating and cooling.
and be purchased through down block heating and cooling.
Thanks.
Yep.
Second?
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Landry and a second by Commissioner Parsons. Any further discussion? Any from the public? I will be abstaining. All in favor? All opposed? 4-0 with one abstaining. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 17, Airport KDOT KAIP grant.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. Come to you with another grant opportunity that we were awarded. This is from KDOT. It's the Kansas Airport Improvement Program. This is to replace the Pappies and Reels for the crosswind runway. We were awarded $425,000. It's a 90-10 split where we paid 10%, so we're only have to pay the $42,500. We're replacing the system with LEDs, so also replacing the regulator in the vault. Hoping to save some of the cost. Hopefully, depending on how this works out, this will coincide with the parallel taxiway project, but we're not sure if that will happen. So if it does, the mobility might be a little less, but if it doesn't, then, so staff recommends that the commission allow the mayor or city manager to sign the agreement and all other documents associated with the project, and that the funds for the project come from the economic development portion of the 1 cent sales tax, an amount not to exceed $50,000.
Brian, this was part of that larger project, right?
No, this is separate.
This is a separate one,
Yes.
but not, so it wasn't bid in with the.
Right, because this is coming from KDOT. This is a KDOT grant that
I
we
just remember
applied
there
for.
was some taxi lighting, I guess it was, this is different lighting.
This is separate lighting, yeah.
Okay,
These are the Pappies and Reels that are actually on the actual runway.
okay. This
So,
is runway, not taxi, okay.
but we're hoping to get it at the same time that the parallel taxiway project is going on, but if not, then, so,
Hoping to save a mobilization fee.
yes. So that way it'll save a little bit of money on this project, but if not, then
I'll make a motion that we allow the mayor or city manager to sign the agreement and all other documents that are associated with this project, and that the funds for the project come from the economic development portion of the 1 cent sales tax in the amount not to exceed $50,000.
I second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Vice Mayor Landry. Any further discussion? Any from the public? All in favor? All opposed? 5-0, motion passes.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Brian.
Number 18, cemetery expansion.
Mayor, Commissioners, I think I've mentioned to this for about 3 years that we're gonna have to do some expansion, so now it's time for the planning stage. We've already did the plot location and layout with Earl's Engineering, but this will include the roads and the utility locates, the fence lines, the whole, pretty much the whole 9 yards on the rest of it. This is gonna take a while to do, so the sooner we start, the quicker we get it open. You got about 6 or 7 years before you're actually gonna need it. So we're requesting that you approve the contract with Earl's Engineering for $98,800 to do the start the process of the cemetery expansion with an amount not to exceed $100,000.
Well, I'll make a motion, to accept the contract from Earl's Engineering for an amount not to exceed $100,000 with funding provided by the community development portion of the 1 cent sales tax.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Landry and a second by Commissioner Vasquez. Any further discussion? Any from the public? All in favor? All opposed? 5-0. Motion passes. All right, now moving on to item number 19, city staff.
Let me start real quick.
Yeah.
Just let me run through my list real quick. First thing I want to do, I want to introduce the young lady sitting with Brian. I don't know if you've met her. That's his admin assistant, Bertha Rodriguez. Just in case you were wondering who was sitting out there. Couple things. Randall Pond has been started. So they are moving dirt over there. The park lighting that you approved, the bullards and the light fixtures themselves will be here next week, and the Parks Department will start installing the bullards at Country Club Park as they get them here and get a little time. And then as the poles get here, probably 4 to 6 weeks later, they'll start working on that stuff. The dog park run, the dog run at the animal shelter will be started tomorrow with the turf, the fence, all that stuff is, the pipes in and the concrete's been poured and everything. So they get that done the next couple of days. It'll take about 2 days to put the fence up and that'll be in order. On the airport land sales, we did clarify today with the airport advisory board, they're only concerned with anything that affects aviation that they want brought to them. The other stuff on the airport out there, they're not wanting that brought to them. Just to clarify, because I know Ronnie had mentioned about taking everything to them at the last meeting. And I'm just gonna throw this out there. With Hayden Olive coming in here, I've got 4 or 5 videos. I spent about 3 hours Saturday morning just driving every area of town and videoing where fireworks were messes and stuff like that. So I would be glad to let you look at them anytime you would like to. And that's it.
Just a few things. So we take a big step forward on Thursday night at the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting at 7 p.m. They will be presenting the comprehensive plan draft for the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve, at which time it would move forward to the commission in August. So we're excited to finally be at this milestone. It's been a long year and a half or so. Our core team members, of course, have been very helpful with getting us to this point as well. Our steering committee members out in the community. So we're excited to be at the finish line, essentially. Had a great turnout for the mural dedication on Friday. That was fantastic. Lots of positive comments from the community. I think it was very much appreciated and has already generated a lot of discussion about, well, what's next? You know, where's the next one going? So I think that's a positive thing. I think it's a big deal for enhancing our appearance and our really just our self-image overall. So thanks to everyone who was able to come to that. The slipper slide, Dorothy slipper slide, arrived Monday. The installer who was supposed to be with it did not. And so they're arriving tonight. We are going to start at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Our parks department and our street department are going to be putting in extremely long hours very quickly to get that thing constructed. It is gigantic. So we are going to push to get that done because we plan to move forward with our Friday ribbon cutting and celebration. It's from 3 to 4 p.m. at the Slipper, which is located at the Visitor Information Center. We'll have some entertainment. We'll have food trucks out. We'll invite the community to come out for the ribbon cutting. Again, between 3 and 4 p.m. And then following that, Dorothy's house, as you know, visitors are welcome over there, and they will be showing a special film, which I don't necessarily think I can name, but ask me, and I'm glad to share that. And they will be playing that at sunset, and they'll have snacks, and it'll be over at Dorothy's house. So we encourage everyone to come check that out.
Any other, go ahead.
Commissioners, just wanted you guys to be aware, our first meeting in November is on Veterans Day. I don't know if you guys are wanting to reschedule that. Just want to bring that up. You don't have to make a decision, but November will be here before we know it. So just wanted to have that. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, thank you again for the opportunity to speak today. The Wichita Police Department partnered with the fire department. We sat down with the city manager, come up with a plan where we would send people out from our respective departments to try to proactively address some of the issues that we have with fireworks. I personally came out Saturday night. It was what I would consider a very low call load. I only received 4 fireworks complaints the entire night that we were at. I didn't have a call after about 12:15. As you remember the nuances of the ordinance, Friday night, which was July 4th, they could shoot fireworks till midnight, but on Saturday, 11 o'clock. And that was what I ran into as the biggest problem on Saturday, were people shooting fireworks off after 11 o'clock. We had about 20 different interactions with groups that we came upon ourselves. We call that self-initiated activity. That was not a dispatched call. No one complained. It was just us stumbling across it. Probably 50% of them were people firing fireworks in the street, which we've heard a lot about tonight, especially with one citizen having a significant problem apparently. I never saw anything like that on the streets. For all the streets that, we were out there for approximately 4.5 hours, whatever it turned out to be. I didn't see anything near the volume that he walked in with. We did see a significant volume on a private lot. It was one of our dispatched calls. They said that someone was on Lewis Automotive firing off fireworks. There was nobody on Lewis Automotive that was firing off fireworks. But the church to the west, there was a big parking lot right there. Probably had at least 10 or 15 families that were there. And they had a big old mess on that parking lot. Drove past later. You'd have thought somebody was out there with a street sweeper. It was perfectly clean. We were happy to see that, and that is kind of what we expect from people to try to enjoy this holiday and follow the ordinance as it was intended. But we didn't see anything, as the citizen came in and explained. To the best of my knowledge, we did not have any repeat calls to 911 for a chronic problem. We did, as we told the commission, start with the opportunity to educate people, try to inform them, explain to them, about the ordinance. I thought the city did a very good job of being proactive. As Scarlett has told you, we tried to send a sheet out with everybody explaining the rules. Whether they follow them or not, obviously we can't help that. But during the week, we had approximately 50 dispatched calls, and I would say around 60 that were self-initiated, and probably there were a lot more self-initiated ones than that, meaning we stumbled upon something, drove across something, saw someone shooting them off afterwards. Felt really bad for a guy. Caught him at 12:07 on Saturday night. Cutoff was 11. Caught him at 12:07 firing off fireworks. He admitted he thought the ordinance said midnight. He was trying to fire fireworks off because he got off at midnight. He was out there with his wife and his 2 kids, and he had a big old bag of fireworks on Saturday night on July 5th. But he shut it down. When we explained to him he's in violation of the ordinance. Every single interaction that I had out on Saturday night with the community, everyone was very polite and professional and apologetic to us. So I'm very disappointed to hear that we had, few instances, probably more than we should have, of people that were actually out there abusing the ordinance. Because the overwhelming majority of people that I ran into, when we explained to them the subtle nuances of the ordinance, they were all apologetic. So I will stand for questions in regards to that, and if not, then I'll let the fire chief come up and speak.
I think that's great if the interaction that we're having between the PD and the people in the community is felt with a positive interaction, and the community understands the rules and things. You're always going to have the one-off that's going to be that, and you're not going to stumble across it. And by no means do I mean earlier in our conversation earlier in the evening when I'm like, no, I'd say it, we're done, build a dome around it. Just want to curve some of it. And if what you're saying, I trust you at 110%. So if you're telling me, hey, this is what we've had, and this was our interaction with the community, and this is how it worked, and some people didn't understand it, and when they did and we communicated with them and shut it down, I don't have problems at that moment in time, but it's the one-offs that leave the messes and stuff like that that tend to ruin it for everybody else.
Absolutely.
We know that, so, thank you.
Plus, you did bring up a very important issue that we kind of don't take into consideration for a lot of the people in our community is their hours.
Yeah.
And some holidays doesn't mean just because the rest of us get to take off that they do as well. So there's many people who get off between anywhere from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Depending where they work, whether it's Walmart or National. And fireworks are best at night. So it's either you wake up early and maybe try and get that in a few hours before you go to work, or when you get off work, if your family are night owls, you kind of end up doing that. So it's just an issue that we always need to take into consideration what everyone is living through, and not everyone does things the way most of us are used to.
Absolutely. Thank you.
But
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Good evening. I know you guys have been through the ringer tonight, so we'll try to, but I would like to echo a lot of what Chief Pinkston said. Our interactions were, for the most part, apologetic, just didn't know, and like we said in the meetings when we were setting all this up, we wanted to go out seeking compliance first and enforcement second. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about three aspects. First of all, the sales with the vendors. We ended up with 6 permitted vendors in the city. They, of course, started on the 27th and were able to sell up to midnight on July 4th. When we went out for our enforcement patrols, we did stop by each one to make sure they were staying within the selling hours. Pretty much for that, they'd still have a customer or two in there at 10:15, but they were working on getting them out the door. So that went pretty well. We did run into several issues throughout the week that merit some concern, and we've documented those in the permitting software for next year so that when those folks come back in for their permits next year, we can address those with them at that time. Some of them were pretty serious offenses and violations of the ordinance. So, and then there were some minor ones and some things that were just kind of unclear with regard to like raffling off fireworks and things like that. So from the sales standpoint, things went pretty well until right up to the very end. The enforcement patrols, the way that we did it with our department is the 27th through the 2nd, we only went to called in complaints or things like that. And as Chief said earlier, we didn't get any of those. We didn't have anything called directly to the fire department. Anything that was dispatched to the 911 center went to law enforcement, and they took care of that. So our first night out, we put 3 fire department vehicles on the street with 2 people in them each night. Used, for the most part, tried to offset the overtime with myself, Deputy Chief Regier, and our 3 battalion chiefs are all salaried, so we're kind of good labor, cheap labor. So we all went out. We went out just before sundown, and we stayed basically out until the cessation of the fireworks for the night. Once we drove around for 15, 20 minutes without hearing anything, we called off the dogs and went back to the station. The first night out, each car that went out had anywhere from 3 to 5 contacts. Back up a little bit, Keely had come up with the flyer. We took those around to all of the vendors. They were more than happy to keep a stack of those in their store and hand those out to people who were buying. And then we had them in our cars, and as we would stop and talk to people, we would hand out the bilingual flyers that told the dates and hours and some fireworks safety tips on there. We handed those out. So the first night, I think we probably had less than 15 contacts, all self-initiated. We took sections of town and we just literally drove the streets. And when we'd see them go up, we'd go to that area, try to dial in on them and find them. The second night, we didn't know what to expect on the 3rd because people were able to shoot on the 3rd last year. It was significantly more busy. The fire department itself, we initiated about 48 contacts that night between sundown and about 12:45 that night. For the most part, I'd say all but about 3 of those were very civil and very educational for them, and very little pushback on shutting down. We did have 2 in cases we had to call law enforcement to come to the scene because we got challenged pretty strongly on those calls. And we're not equipped or trained to deal with those confrontations. So we called law enforcement, they came and assisted us on those calls. Then on 4th of July and 5th of July, we intended to do the same thing. It just did not work out for us. Our first dumpster fire call, they could shoot till midnight on Saturday night. Our first dumpster fire call came in at 12:07, and it was one after the other on that. And by the time we finished up with that, and it's only 4 calls, but by the time we finished up with that, it's 2:30 in the morning. Everybody's quit, ran out of steam, and went home for the most part anyway. Same thing happened to us on the 5th. We had dumpster fire calls, a patio fire call that damaged a gas meter, things like that. So our plan to go out and patrol for enforcement on the 4th and 5th didn't work out like we thought it would, but we did still on both nights initiate anywhere from 12 to 20 calls. We were able to catch some in between the calls and things like that. The biggest 2 events, I think, the most serious in my mind's eye, folks shooting some off, a gentleman sitting on the porch, one tipped over, he was hit in the head with the firework. Don't know, I think he went personal vehicle to the hospital, didn't transport in the ambulance. And then we lost 2 homes on Saturday, and it's gonna be very hard to rule out fireworks in those cases unless a witness caught something, which we've had none come forward. And we went through the neighborhood and found 1 camera, but it only went to the edge of the driveway across the street, so we're not able to pick up anything there. But we know to a certainty that the fire started outside of the home, underneath the carport. And in any fire investigation, once you identify the area of origin, you start to rule out ignition sources, and there's fireworks and basically 2 others. I don't know that in my career I've ever seen an air conditioner condenser cause a fire, but it is a powered piece of equipment that could have caused a fire. And there was a propane grill, a flat top propane grill and a propane bottle there as well. But the owner was inside eating and he hadn't cooked on that all week long, so unless he left the propane on or something like that. So it's very hard to rule out fireworks on that fire as well. It's just almost too coincidental when it happened. And then, of course, while we're fighting that fire, you had 2 houses, literally 2 houses fully engulfed, burning on a block, and the neighbors around it never slowed down one bit, still firing fireworks as fast as they could get them lit. So, again, that's another reason it would be difficult to rule those out. So we put in all the, I think we had about 77 and a half total man hours on fireworks patrols. And like I said earlier, we responded to 9 calls that I know to be fireworks related. And that added up to about another 48 hours of overtime cost for volunteer and off-duty response back to those calls. Fortunately, the grass fires were minimal because we've had enough moisture and rain that when they did start, they didn't go very fast, didn't get away from us very fast. And then the dumpster fires, you know, I hate to say it, we tell people clean it up and throw them away. It's hard to fault them for throwing them away. I just wish they'd let them cool down overnight or wet them down before they did put them in the dumpster. So, but that was kind of our experience, but most of our interactions with the public went very well. But during those hours, it was pretty intense. There were a lot of fireworks being shot off. Any questions?
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. Any other city staff? Moving on to item number 20, city manager report.
Okay, so Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, this has been a long one. I think we resolved a lot of things and brought a lot of things to the forefront. I will try to keep this as brief as possible. First of all, thank you to Chet and Kelly for your leadership during the holiday weekend. I know that this is super fun for everybody but you guys and your teams, and so I appreciate you working together, and I really appreciate you going out with your people and not just pointing your finger and saying, go out and do that and let me know how it goes. That is not going unnoticed by me. I'm a servant leader, and I recognize that in other people, and I very much appreciate it. City bus June ridership numbers are holding steady at 2,147. That is excellent, especially with school not being in session. We do pickups for that reason, so we held steady there. Nothing major to report. I do appreciate everybody coming out for the mural ribbon cutting. I know that Keely touched on that, but I could really feel the excitement of everybody to see a project come to fruition. I know that they were very excited and asking about the next thing that was going to happen. I want to give a huge thank you to Kareem for doing that for us. She has a very rare artistic gift, and she has given that to us and our community for years to come, and I hope that she knows that. I feel like I could tell her a million times, but I've heard so many great things about it. It's in a great location. It adds so much color and brightness to that area, and it's already a beautiful park. So thank you to her and her family, because they all pitched in there at the end and helped us get it done. And we had a little bit of feedback early online that people thought that was computer generated, and I laughed because she was so good at it, it looked like she didn't do it by hand. So props to her. I do encourage everybody to come out on Friday to support the tourism staff on the opening of the slipper slide. We are excited to have that big reveal and have good food and entertainment all afternoon around that. We are getting ready to enter into full-on budget season, so the next few weeks we will have a better idea of where we're going to come in with the mill levy. We want to be very responsible and respectful of our constituents here in Liberal. We do think that we might want to have at least 2 commission work sessions so that we can go a little bit more in depth and have some solid conversations. I know nonprofits we're wanting to have in advance of that as well, so that we can appropriate that money correctly at your request from last year. So we're not working within a very confined budgetary space, that we've already allotted that money by the time we get to work sessions. I didn't see a tremendous amount of capital expense requests that came in, so this might be a year where we are not burdened with that too heavily. We can recover and breathe a little bit going forward. Some of those departments have pretty healthy reserves as far as with their equipment reserves, so I think we'll come in pretty good there. I'm excited to get that going. I actually love budget season. Thank you, Angelica, for getting the renewal to us in July. I remember a couple years ago that came to the commission in September, and it needed to be approved like the next day. So thank you. We don't feel rushed, and we are on a really good schedule, I feel like, with everything at this point. And finally, we have several projects being completed or close to completion, and then I will shift focus here in the next couple of weeks and get that letter ready for the county for the hopeful buyout of the piece of the fire department. I feel good about both commissions coming together. In my discussions with April, we think this will most likely work. And so I have a big whiteboard, and on it has like my daily, weekly, and monthly functions that I need to do, and then it has a bigger area that has major projects. And I think I marked 4 things off the major project list in the last 2 weeks, which is huge because they've been up there forever. So now I can focus on a couple of other things, and we look forward to doing that and helping the fire department with something that I think we've wanted to move towards for quite some time. So thank you for your time today. I know it took a minute, but I feel like we accomplished a lot, so.
Okay, thank you. Item number 21, items from commissioners. Who wants to start?
There you go.
Go, Ron.
I wasn't gonna say much, because this meeting's already been long enough, but I feel like I gotta say a couple things anyway. So, first of all, we appreciate staff putting in the extra effort during the holiday and all the others, and ahead of time for the staff that's gonna be out there working on the Ruby Slipper
Yes.
tomorrow, and wish them luck getting that put together speedily. But as far as the fireworks, again, of course, said something earlier, I'm gonna just do it briefly quick. I actually feel like overall that people stopped a little better this year than they have in the last few years. And I also feel like if we banned them completely, I remember when they were banned, they got popped anyway. I mean, some of them. So there's always gonna be those people out there that are gonna do whatever they wanna do. And those are the ones I wish we could get to, is those. And my neighbor that did what they did, I don't actually include them in that group. I think it was more that they didn't know what they could do. But if you'd have seen that one, Chet, it was, I mean, there were hundreds of them out there in the street, and they got most of it cleaned up. But I still had, I didn't have as much as in my yard as he had in his yard, but I still had picked up several parachute things. There was pieces of the cones and stuff in my yard, and I'd have picked up a lot more if it wouldn't have washed off the driveway and down the street. So it ended up at somebody else's house the next morning, I guess. But most of it, like say, the big pieces I picked up. But that's the ones that, you know, I just wish, you know, people would have the consideration for their neighbors to do it when you're supposed to do it, not when you're not supposed to do it. Clean up all your messes and try to follow the rules and like say, and probably not block the street. But especially, I think it's illegal to block somebody's driveway anyway. But at the same time, like I say, they've never done it before. I've had people have parties on my street, and for the most part, they've never blocked my driveway, but I was just corralled out this time, so I don't know what their thought process was, but they've been good neighbors, so I'm gonna cut them some slack, but I still think we need to have some conversations before next year to see what we can do to maybe take care of the problem makers, but another thing, I know I was assigned to the planning and zoning board meetings, and I missed the last one, and there's one Thursday, and I'm gonna be out of town again, so I don't know if any of you guys wanna go. I think they're gonna review the comprehensive plan, and, I don't know if any of you guys want,
I
they
was
probably
planning
feel
on being there,
neglected.
so.
Huh?
I was planning on being there.
Okay, well, if you can pick up my slack, because they probably feel like I'm neglecting them. But when I do have an important job that I have to go to that's several hours away and look at that day with some other people I work with, and I won't be back in time, so I appreciate it if you're going then.
Yep, glad to.
That's all I have.
So I'll keep it short. We had a very productive, successful meeting today, but of course, this is all due to all of the staff's hard work. Do want to thank the staff that worked the 4th of July weekend while we got to enjoy, the family festivities with our family. You guys were out working hard, so do want to say thank you. I actually went to the memorial celebration. It was really nice. I think a lot of people are just really excited with the momentum and everything the City of Liberal's doing. I'm so excited we can finally cross it off our list. I think I've been asking for a mural since I first got on the commission. So it's just really exciting. I think it just gives Liberal more of an identity. I did send something to Scarlett as well, another project we can explore, but I won't tell you guys just yet. But just super excited for the Red Ruby Slipper as well. I do think it's going to be a tourist destination attraction. I feel like it's going to definitely bring more people to Liberal. So it's an economic project as well. And other than that, I just want to thank Angelica for your hard work on the insurance renewal. That's it.
Yes.
Man, what a meeting. We're pushing a little over 2.5 hours now, so to keep it short, thanks to staff. We wouldn't have been able to have a meeting like this without all of your input, so thank you so much, and that's all I'm going to say. Appreciate all your hard work.
Yeah, thanks to all the staff, everybody from 4th of July, PD, fire department. I owe somebody a deep apology this evening. I told that person, they were asked me earlier if it was gonna be a long meeting. I said, no, it'll be long, but it probably won't be that bad. I am so sorry. It was a marathon, so we were in here for a long time, but it was great. We saw democracy at some of its best this evening. There was disagreements, there was agreements, there was deep conversation, and that's exactly how it should work. So we saw some really good things happen tonight, and I think that shows the maturity of this commission in a big way, that we've learned to work together and now over-communicate with each other in a way that when I first got here, I don't know if we were communicating at that level, so, but it just shows that it's great, and I'm glad that I worked with the men and women up here and with the city and the people that represent the city. I couldn't be more proud to be part of that. So tip my hat to everybody who does a very hard job every day at what they do. And the fact that we represent a bigger entity, which is the taxpayers and the community. So I look forward to the slipper thing on Friday. I will be there. I'm excited for that. So thank you. Everybody have a great evening.
Right. Again, always thank you to all the staff for everything you do, especially over these holiday weekends. And again, even just on the items we have, both the assessment, the expansion for the cemetery, that our staff is always looking forward toward the future and how we can expand and be better. I think half of, actually, between the airport, our lobbyists, it just shows that this city has definitely put its eyes forward on what we're trying to accomplish, and then just as well all the projects we've done. I think we're missing another town hall for that, just to go through with what 2024 did and what we've fixed in 2025. It's been a great year, and I can't wait to get into the budget session. Because there's a lot to look into at that one as well because of the other entities. So our community is definitely going to be looking toward us to address what maybe other entities may not be able to address at this time. That being said, thank you. Thank you to everybody, especially for the community. And I think you touched on it a little bit. Thank you to this commission and for the staff, because that's what allowed this communication to exist, is because everyone's willing to work together. So we'll go from there. Item 22, the vouchers.
I'll make a motion that we approve the vouchers in the amount of $1,554,047.53.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Commissioner Vasquez. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? 5-0. Motion passes. We are adjourned.